Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's City Council regular meeting for Tuesday, January 16th. Just one study session topic for tonight. We got Director of Utilities and South Platte Renew Director Pieter Van Wright and Deputy Director of Business Services Sarah Stone here to discuss the annual customer survey results. Good evening, Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sarah's going to do this presentation, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Hi. Hello. Good evening, Mayor and Council. All right. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the 2023 results of the annual customer survey that utilities did late last year. This is our second annual survey. We did our first in 2022, so I'll give some comparisons of where we fell this year to where we fell last year. I guess now 2023 to 2022. I also invited Zach Alabassi, who is our water operations manager, to be available for questions after the presentation. Him and his staff have been making changes at the treatment plant, really focusing on customer calls that they get at the water plant when there's complaints about the taste, odor, and hardness of the water, to dig in and really understand what those issues are. So he'll be available for questions. This presentation was presented to the Water and Sewer Board last week at our January 9th meeting. The survey was opened August 1st through October 9th. The survey was sent to every customer in their water bill in August, but these surveys were also made available online as well as at all the city facilities. So we would accept them, up at our billing counter or at any of the drop boxes that we had placed around the city, as well as by mail, and then there was also an option to submit online. The survey was 15 questions asking customers their opinion about taste, odor, and hardness of the water, as well as the cost of our services. In 2023, we had a total number of responses of 935. This was down about 30% from 2022. I actually took that as a good sign, thinking that people will respond when they have more negative opinions. So being down 30% might be a good sign that folks are seeing improvement in our water. I also got from Zach that the number of calls to the water plant about the water taste and odor are down as well. He started collecting customer calls in August 2022, where they were really tracking the number of phone calls. So in August 2022 through December 2022, there were 32 customer calls complaining about the water. That's down 16% for 2023, where throughout the whole year there were only 27 calls. So moving on to summary of the results. So in your packet, you have the survey report that has all of these pie charts, as well as all of the responses that we got to the open-ended questions and the comments that were requested as the 15th question to the survey, where folks could write in and give more general responses. So question number 1, I actually don't have those results here. So that question asked where people lived in Inglewood using the neighborhood names. And that question didn't really result with any data that was useful. There was about 30% of folks that didn't even answer that question. So we didn't include those results here. So starting with question 2, how long have you lived in Inglewood? There was a large increase in the number of responses that we got from people that have lived here for 20 plus years. Last year, that was only about 40% of customers that responded. This year, it's about 49%. The other piece of the pie that increased was, or that actually decreased as a result of that, was the number of people that have lived here less than 5 years. So that went down from 36% in 2022 to 25% in 2023. Question 3, do you drink Inglewood water? This is about the same as last year's results. 65% answered that yes, they did, and 35% answered no. Moving on to question 4, how would you rate your tap water at your home or business? These results are very similar between the 2 years. In 2022, 49% of the customers said that the water was poured, compared to 47% this year. And then a larger number of customers rated the water as fair this year. That's up about 10% from 2022. And so that means that the average, or the customers that rated it from average to excellent went down from 41% to 32% in 2023. Question number 5 was whether or not folks used a home filter for their tap water. This is the same as last year, or excuse me, not quite the same. In 2022, there were 73% used a filter. That's down a little bit to 66% for 2023. Question 6 asked if the customer bought bottled water, split 50-50. That was the same exact result as last year. The next 2 questions were about water discolorization. It's the same results for if folks had experienced discoloration in their water in the last 20 months or 12 months. 62% said no, 38% said yes. We added a new question this year that asked what time of year, if you had experienced discoloration, when did that happen? So a large majority, 70%, noticed it between April and September. And that's what we would expect, as that's when temperatures are rising, runoff is occurring, there's algae blooms. So there's certain things that will impact the water during that time. Question number 9, this is moving to taste and odor, asked if there were any improvement in the taste of the water in the last 12 months. There was a slight improvement between the 2022 and 2023. The number of people that rated the water from having a minor improvement to a significant improvement went up from 16% in 2022 and is now at 23% for 2023. Question 10 is asking about the odor, if there was any noticeable changes or improvement in the odor over the last 12 months. These are the same as the results for 2022. About 78% has saw no change. Our next question is focused on the cost of services. So rating the cost of drinking water was question number 11. It's a similar results to last year, 28 or to 2022. 28% rated the cost of water as unacceptable or poor, and that's only up 2% from 2022. 72% rating the cost from fair to excellent. Question number 12 was about the willingness to pay. So we explained in the question that the cost to deliver water to a customer's door was less than a penny. And then we asked if the customer was what they were willing to pay, and that the answers ranged from less than a penny, 1 to 2 cents per gallon, 3 to 5 cents per gallon, or over 5 cents per gallon. In 2022, 25% of the customers did not answer this question, so we reframed it so it provoked an answer. So really, most of those people that didn't answer now fell into the less than a penny per gallon, so that's at 53%. A total of 46% would pay between 1 cent to over 5 cents per gallon. And there were several comments in the written portion that folks would say they would pay more if the water tasted better, or be willing to pay more. Question number 14, this was the only question about the sewer services, and it was related to the cost of service. The percentage of people that think the cost of sewer services is poor or unacceptable was 16%, which was down 2 percentage points from 2022. 84% rated the cost from fair to excellent, with a greater number of people moving from the good to fair category. The number that rated the cost as excellent this year, or in 2023, was down 3% from 2022. Now, the last 2 questions were open-ended questions. So one of them was, how much are you willing to pay for a gallon of bottled water? The range for this was anywhere from a penny to $3 per gallon, with some write-in answers saying, not applicable. They don't buy bottled water, or they shouldn't have to buy bottled water. And then regarding any additional comments, we asked for feedback. They had a section in the survey that they could provide written feedback. And there were several common themes. The cost of water, of course, was one. Taste, odor, and hardness as well. And then PFAS and lead service lines were mentioned as concerns for customers this year. I took that as a sign that our customer outreach is working and people are understanding that these are issues that we are dealing with. And then there were several comments that demonstrated that they felt there was a slight improvement to the water. I pulled out a couple. Like I said, those are all included in your packet. If you'd like to read through them, it's several pages. I'll give you a couple negative comments and then a couple positive comments. One negative comment was, your water is the worst in Denver. You sell Denver the good water and give us the bad water in the pond down Layton Street. You are all typical political leaders. You charge us double for nasty smelling water. Another negative comment was, I pay $150 per month for nasty smelling water that I will not even give my pets. Then on top of that, I pay an additional $1.24 per bottle. I think I should pay for better smelling and tasting water. It's always been awful. I think the water department owes me. And then on the positive side, the improvement over the last 2 years has been good, and the amount of calcium in the water has dropped. This is noticeable when using the dishwasher. The quality has improved. Please keep going forward. And another positive comment is, the water tasted and smelled significantly better this summer until September. Even so, it still tastes and smells better now than it did last year. Thank you for the improvements in that, and I'm looking forward to next summer. They gave us a little smiley face. So then the last point I want to make here, because we do get questions on how do we arrive at that less than a penny per gallon for delivering treated water to a customer's door. I wanted to break down the cost of water delivered. So in 2024, based on current rates, the capital improvement fee for a typical customer is $16 per month. The administration fee is $3.36 per month, and the usage rate is $3.91 per 1,000 gallons used. So water charge for 6,000 gallons, which is what we claim as a typical customer, is a monthly charge of $42.82 or 0.007 cents per gallon. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director. Member Russell, you have the first question.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. So on these evaluations, do you ever use questions to compare with one another? Like question 3 and question 5. Question 5 says, do you use a device at home to filter your tap water? Question 3, do you drink Inglewood water? The percentages are almost equal on that.
Right.
So does that mean that people that are drinking Inglewood water are filtering it?
Anecdotally, I would say yes, that's probably what's happening, but we haven't correlated it with, this respondent said, answered it in this way compared to, we just get the report. We don't have a way of comparing it that way.
Right. So, it was interesting that they kind of corresponded to each other. There was like only 1% difference off. So, I appreciate you doing this. And at the Water and Sewer Board, I was really impressed with staff in the fact that when people call and complain about the water, they go out to check. Because water is the number one thing I have received complaints about since the time I've been on council. And to be real honest, I agree with some of those comments. So, but I appreciate this, and I appreciate the attention that your staff is taking to address customer concerns.
Sure, and I can, Zach, if you want to add what Councilmember Russell is mentioning when we presented this at Water Sewer Board, staff really does take the time to receive these phone calls. They work with the customer. They potentially go out to the customer's home and walk them through any results that they have on their water testing and look for solutions such as flushing or other ways that they can improve their water at their home. Yeah.
So the one thing I may add to what Sarah said is there is two components to the water system itself. There is the treatment part, but there is also the distribution part as well. And one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to get as much feedback as possible from our customers, just to try to, I guess, get a better feel. Is it happening at the water treatment plant or in the distribution system? The indication so far, after almost a year and a half of study, and it points to a lot of times to the distribution system. There are folks that are on dead ends that probably require more flushing than usual. There are folks that are on pipes that probably been in the ground for many years that, we're probably going to look at those and target those as part of our main replacement. So we're trying to make contact and understand the magnitude of the problem from the customer. Is it taste? Is it odor? How often do you use the water? What kind of taste and odor? Is it something that can be related to seasonal changes? If you recall, back in April and May, we had all these rains and floods. That didn't help anybody, including the treatment facility. So we're also taking a lot of samples. We used to do basic sampling. Now we take some, I'm trying to kind of target really kind of problematic areas that happen to be in a dead end or on an old infrastructure, and try to do more forensics, if you will, by sending them out to specialized lab that specialize in testing for taste and odor. There's a lot of compounds that contribute to those. So we're trying to quantify the problem, not just look at it as, kind of a common thing. We're trying to understand the chemistry of it, and that helps us determine what kind of treatment we're doing. So public outreach, there's a lot of things that we were able to do on the fly really quick as far as the treatment process, modifications that went a long way. There are things that need to be more strategic that we're looking at hopefully for 24. I feel that with some of the projects we're gearing to do in 24, that we'll be able to hopefully make significant change for everybody.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate what you're doing. So, and Sarah, you might be able to answer this question. Is that how we came to the conclusion that we needed to dredge the pond as the solution rather than the diversion project?
Well, I'm going to have
Okay,
Pieter
thank you.
So, yes, and the dredging was the dredging initially was seen as a priority project because, frankly, the curtain wall in the pond had been pushed over so far that it had just exceeded the capacity just in and of itself. So we knew we needed to pull down some of the solids out of there. Independently, Zach, with our operations staff and our engineering staff, started to look at the composition of the water that was in the south solid settling pond and then the north reservoir to see if there was some correlation of some of the taste and odor elements that are causing more of a problem. And that analysis and that investigation told us that the south settling pond is actually creating more of a circular loop problem than was the original driver for why we did it. The reason we originally did it was because it was exceeding capacity. But as we learn more about things, we're learning that the things that haven't been maintained for a long period of time, because it was easier to just keep letting that pond fill up, has actually resulted in an effect on taste, odor, and hardness. So it wasn't a driver; it was a result of. Now, as it relates to Big Dry Creek, that project was originally conceived as a project to help address the flush of sediment and solids that are like runoff that comes down Big Dry Creek. When we shifted our approach to access source water at Chatfield, that made that a much more significant priority because we can eliminate the influence of Big Dry Creek by pulling the predominance of our water from Chatfield as opposed to Union Ave, which is where Big Dry Creek just discharges just upstream of Union Ave. We also determined through analysis that even when Big Dry Creek was discharging, the dominant effect was actually coming from the main stem of the South Platte. So we didn't see that there was as significant of a water quality improvement by that project that was probably originally thought to be there in the 2015, 2016 timeframe. And so a lot of this is just, we've staffed up with people like Zach who come with decades of experience in water treatment and a number of engineers, a number of operators. And with that brings this knowledge from other agencies that is allowing us to look at it with different eyes, and from multiple different angles, we're figuring out what's potentially contributing, because it's not just one thing. It's a multitude of things, and we're addressing them all collectively to try and get the most significant effect as fast as possible.
Thank you. I appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Actually, Director Van Wright, before we get to Member Noonekamp and then Prang and Member Wright, could you introduce Zach? I don't think Zach has ever spoken at one of our council meetings.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So Zach Alabassi is our water treatment. He's our operations manager at the Allen plant. So he is all over all of water treatment for the Allen treatment plant. He comes to us from Denver Water, so he has a long career in water. But most recently, he was 18 or 20 years at 25 years at Denver Water, and left Denver Water and came to us. And one of the reasons why he came to us was because he appreciated the challenge that our plant and our system posed. And he's got a background in chemical engineering and is just really going process by process and diagnosing how the plant works. Because if we're not operating the plant exactly right, the systems that are supposed to be working together will actually work against each other. And I think that was some of what was happening, was some of the systems weren't being utilized in an optimal way. And when they're not, they create taste and odor issues with the produced water that we produce. And so he's diagnosing to make sure that those sequences work.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Alabassi, welcome to Inglewood. Thank you for your input. Member Noonekamp.
Thank you very much.
Yep. I'm going to bring Sarah back.
Thank you for the presentation. It's great to get this data every year. You mentioned in the presentation the impact of some of your outreach efforts, specifically around PFAS and the lead line program. How do you anticipate using this survey data this year in community engagement? Kind of what direction do you think it'll take? How will we be responsive to it? I've shared this with you before, but last summer when I was in the district talking to constituents, I heard from one individual who said, I was very upset about the water, and then I went to a community meeting with the water department, and a very smart blonde woman told me what they were doing, and now I think it's great. How can we get more of that information out in the community?
Yeah, I think that is one of our focuses for this next year, and that's through social media posts, through participating in the community events, through showing the customers what we're doing. These incremental changes, they're very hard to describe, as we're listening to treatment processes and things that are these concepts that you can't explain in a 2-minute post or whatever on social media, but given the time and given our outreach to be able to do that, I think it's part of the education process that we have planned for customers. So we'd like to start using, flyers in the bill or additional information on our website. Actually, if you haven't been to the utilities webpage in a while, I'd encourage you to take a look, because we are updating that more frequently. We're adding more information, really trying to get that information out.
One other thing that Sarah did briefly mention is neighborhood nights. I think neighborhood nights was a great opportunity. We had a booth every time. We had a number of staff, both at Utilities and South Platte Renew, that were staffing that and would spend significant amounts of time with the customers to explain and help them understand. And the thing that was actually, that I appreciated at neighborhood nights, was the number of people who came up to us and said, no, the water's great. We've actually never had a problem with it. And so we hear so much about the problem with the water. It was actually kind of nice through neighborhood nights to hear people, we'd say, well, how's your water? And they say, it's great. We've never had a problem. And so there's this balancing perspective that comes through that proactive outreach that I think neighborhood nights really, really helped us with.
I appreciate that. And I think, you know, the survey collection and the data collection is so helpful. And I'm excited to see us use the data to be responsive so that we see these numbers continue to change next year.
Yeah, well, and I think to add on to that, you know, that is our intent. You know, 2022 was a real baseline year. We're seeing different changes here in 2023. 2024 is really going to be a year that a lot of capital is starting to get, projects are getting initiated. So we're hoping to see these trends over time to really improve, the results of the survey. One thing I meant to mention earlier in the presentation is we actually changed the timing of the survey in 2022. It was conducted in, I believe, February and March, so early in the year, based on our presentation that we gave to council in 2022 with those results. We were asked to push it later in the year when people do experience those problems. So we want to hear about that in those summer months, and that's why we moved it to August through October.
It's great work. Thank you.
Member Prang, do you still have a question?
Member Noonenkamp kind of asked my question, but do we post the results, just straight results from the survey, to the website anywhere? And outside of those, one-on-one conversations at community events, just highlight some actions that we've taken based on your feedback. I just noticed in the written responses, that there was a very pointed comment about providing the survey results back to the community. So just kind of continuing to make that connection in whether we're out in the community, as some community members may interpret us, interpreting the results for them and in doing the thinking for them. I just want to know if we have the raw results of the survey available to the community once it's done.
So yes, we can post the survey report that you all have in your packet. We can absolutely post that on our website. As far as the raw results, it's in a spreadsheet. That's a little bit harder to get out there. The summary seems to be the best way to do that, but it is 100 plus pages that we're happy to put up on the website so everybody can see it.
Yeah, and I would not want to see pages and pages of all of the comments, but just to have that responsiveness.
Yes. Yeah.
And transparency back to the community.
Absolutely.
We're asking for you to take time to participate in the survey to help us better services to the Inglewood community, and thus, here is the raw data that we received.
Sure.
So the one thing I would say on that is, one of the things that we heard was that people didn't want to leave their information because they thought that we would somehow trace them to where they are and use that information somehow, which we can't do. But I would hesitate to post the individual comments, because someone might think that, oh wait, now they're trying to single me out. I think all these graphs and these charts, absolutely, it's something that we can do. Additionally, Sarah did mention, we have done a lot of work on our website to put our taste and odor projects and our active projects. So there's a lot more, and regulatorily, we've had to on PFAS and lead service lines. And so there's been a tremendous amount of work, probably over the last 1.5 to 2 years, to really improve the content on the website. But this is something we definitely add from a summary perspective.
Thank you for that.
Member Wright, and then Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for all the work that you entire department's put into this. I have a couple questions and may hit all three of you. Is there an area specifically that you need to go in and flush those lines to help with that order and taste? And I know it sounds like it's specific times of years. So are there specific areas? And I know that when I was speaking previously, there's the different connections. The further away you get, the more problems there are.
So two answers to that. One is we're doing a much better job of collecting the data from the complaints. So when we get calls, we're collecting that and we're plotting it so that we can start to see if we can draw a correlation to areas that seem to continue to experience issues. The second piece is our first project for water line replacement was actually working to loop a number of those dead ends so that they were no longer a dead end. So we did invest in the distribution system to try and close some of those loops. We couldn't close them all, but some of those have been put on a schedule to have more increased flushing so that if they are on a dead end that we couldn't loop, to ensure that, especially in the winter when demands are low, the water doesn't get pulled through as fast, and so we can flush those more often. I think as it relates to actual feedback and complaints, that's where we're tracking it better, because we're trying to see if we can draw a correlation to areas of the city where it seems to be more prevalent than not.
Are there things that a resident can do to help with that? And let me give you an example. We have 3 bathrooms. We don't use one of the bathrooms at all, where a resident could go in, and this could be an education thing, flush that toilet on occasion or turn on the sink or something like that. Or is it just the city's lines that's where that problem is?
So on an individual home perspective, yes, if there's areas of your house that you're not using a lot, the first time you're drawing water out of that, we would recommend that you let it flush through,
Right.
For a minute or two, so that you're flushing whatever's that stale water in the pipes that may have been there for a month or something like that. So you can do that anytime you're turning on your system in your house. As it relates to an individual house on a larger distribution system, really it's hard to have a significant impact because of the magnitude of those lines and the demand on those lines, which is why we have the annual flushing program, which is why we're expanding that flushing program to target specific areas that have more dead end lines, or if there are areas that just continue to see an issue relative to this. What happens to the water system in the winter is sediments that are in the water. That a lot of it's iron. Frankly, it's the iron from the pipes will settle out. The velocity is lower because there's not such a high demand. So then when people ramp up their sprinkler systems in May, all of a sudden it's pulling more water through, and it's kicking up whatever has dropped out over the winter. So that's why we flush it, because we try to do that in advance of that happening to everyone's house. But that's just a naturally, that's just not natural, but it's a byproduct of any distribution system and any water system. Is when you get low demands, things will settle out, and then you have to flush them out.
Okay, and I have one more question. We have a lot of apartments, townhouses and stuff in this city. Is there a plan in future surveys to get information out to people that don't get the utility bill but use our water, to get them to take part in the survey? And they use the services they may not be paying for it, but they do use and drink our water, so get them to take part in the survey in the future.
So I think we do that now to some degree, but if there are other ideas for how we can improve that outreach, we're open to it. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just comment on the outreach efforts that we do. So we post several times on social media that the survey is going on. There is the online option. So there's a link that customers can go to fill out the survey. We also place paper surveys and a QR code at every city facility. So going into the rec center, during the survey time, it is available for customers to fill out. But yes, open to any other suggestions on how we get that out.
Well, we have the new text program, so the more people that start doing that, maybe that'll be an option. So, all right, well, thank you for answering all my questions. I appreciate it.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you for the presentation, Deputy Director Stone. I have first of all, kind of a technical question. When you're going in and testing the water for things related to taste and odor, what are we testing for?
I'm gonna turn that over to Zach.
Pull Zach up, man. Thought maybe that was a Zach question.
I'll take this one. Yeah. So the very first thing we do is we try to compare it to the water leaving the facility. So
Okay.
we do basic chemistry tests like pH, that just tells us the acidity or how basic the water is. We look at hardness, alkalinity. We look at obviously turbidity, which is how clean the water is. So these are usually the general tests that we look at. And if it looks very close to the treatment facility, that's usually a good indication that the water is moving in a good way to keep that water fresh. If we see a decline, for example, I've been working with this homeowner for almost a couple of months now, and she happens to be on a dead end. And the first indicator that, she was on a dead end is she had lower chlorine residuals. It still met the minimum by a large margin, but it was lower than what we typically see. So one thing I recommended for her is let's target that area, flush it, see if we can get that chlorine residual to come up a little bit, which it did. But we went back a week later and we sampled it again, and it has dipped again. So I said, let's go ahead and flush it one more time and see if that at least maintain it for a little bit longer period of time. And it did. It went on for 2-3 weeks, and it started to dip again. We flushed it a third time, and that was it. We went back a month later, and it was still looking almost exactly like the water leaving the plant. Just one thing we did, especially for that homeowner, just to put her mind at ease, because she was correlating that to some things that she felt were impacting her health. We actually took a sample and sent it to, again, a specialized lab that does or analyze compounds that cause taste and odor. Things like MIB, geosmin. There's a lot of organics that contribute to taste and odor. And the results came back, and they were actually almost at the limit or below the limit of where you even notice the taste and odor. Typically 5 parts per billion, not even million per billion with a B, is usually the threshold where an individual can actually notice that smell. And she was at 3 and 6 for the other compound. So I shared that information with her that, you don't even have detectable organics in that water. So again, to answer your question, we do the basics, and if there is an indication that there is some that we need to pursue in more detail, we can certainly collect more samples. There are things that we can do at the treatment facility, and there are things that we send out to other labs to provide us more information.
And you're collecting all this data, and I think it's awesome that you're working with individual, trying to solve a problem in a specific area. Is there also kind of a more meta-analysis where the data is being collected, and then the smart people applying the data science stuff are figuring out, how these things correlate in different parts of the city and that kind of thing?
We do. We started actually, in addition to collecting those complaints and, what is the area, what kind of taste and odor, when does it happen? We also start using GIS to plot those locations. So, create some kind of a heat map, if you will. That way, if a lot of complaints are coming from a certain area, we'll work with distribution collection on there is probably more kind of a chronic problem that we need to address. It could be the water pipe itself. It could be, more flushing, whatever the need might be. We'll start to kind of zoom in on that particular area. So, but that program is less than a year old. So,
Okay.
Again, to me, what helps me the most is more and more feedback from our customers, from our users, for us to at least determine where the problem is and what type of problem it is. So, there are seasonal changes, there are treatment changes that we can do, and there are distribution system mitigation measures that we can apply. But yeah, we started applying it to GIS just so we can at least have a visibility of, is there any particular area that's more problematic than others?
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions from members of council? No, we had a lot of questions, a lot of answers. Director Van Rye, Deputy Director Stone, Mr. Alabasi, thank you very much for your time tonight, and love to see the improvements that you guys are making to the water quality and order in the city. So,
Thank you. Anything else?
No, Zach had said MIB, and I looked it up, and it's not Men in Black, although that's the first thing that comes in if you type in MIB. It's 2-methyl-isoborneal and geosmin. So they're compounds that are produced by bacteria that contribute to taste and odor, and that's what we're testing for. And so whenever you hear us say MIB, that's why we say MIB.
and that's what you wanted to end this presentation.
That's exactly right.
All
So, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for the presentation. Everyone, we're going to take a 20-minute break. We'll start up the meeting again at the top of the hour. So, thank you so much. All right, everyone, we are back. I call this meeting to order. If you're able to do so, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. City Clerk, if you could please take a roll call.
Yes, good evening. Mayor Pro Tem Anderson,
Present.
Member Noonenkamp,
Present.
Member Praying,
Present.
Member Russell,
Present.
Member Ward,
Present.
Member Wright,
Present.
Mayor Sierra.
Present.
All 7 present.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 5. This is minutes of the regular city council meeting of January 8th. Any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve the minutes from January 8th.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Prang. Can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp.
Aye.
Member Praying,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Ward,
Aye.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. Moving on to 5B, the minutes of the special city council meeting of January 9th. Any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from January 9th, 2024.
Thank you, Member Russell. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Wright. Can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp,
Aye.
Member Praying,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Ward,
Aye.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. No agenda item 6. Moving on to recognition of scheduled public comment. The deadline to sign up for scheduled public comment is Wednesday by 5 p.m. prior to the meeting through the city clerk's office. This is an opportunity for the public to address city council. There's an expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. Council may ask questions for clarification, but there will not be any dialogue, and please limit your presentation to 5 minutes. Member Noonenkamp will be giving a response to public comment tonight. Only one speaker tonight. We have Christopher Cordova here to address council. Good evening, Mr. Cordova. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Star, right? Okay. All right, good?
You're good to go.
Okay. My name's Christopher. I'm not going to give my address, and I'm back today to readdress the standards of behavior. And before, just about 20 minutes ago, I actually had a conversation with Mr. Lewis, and he informed me that you guys are looking into it, or that he's looking into it. I guess it was a policy that he had adopted from Longmont, I believe. So, Mr. Anderson, last time you had asked me if there's anything else in here that is unconstitutional that I saw. So upon further review, there's actually several things. So I want to get right into it. But before we do that, I'd like to address the things that are not unconstitutional. So we do have some legitimate things here. We got threats, harassment, vandalism, stuff like that. Mr. Lewis, these things are already illegal. So this seems a bit redundant to me. I mean, we could put any old thing on here. I mean, we could put murder one. It's against our policy to murder anyone in an Inglewood City facility. It seems silly to me. And honestly, it seems a bit patronizing to me because we're all adults here. And the way this is written is like, we don't need to be told that we're not supposed to harass people or threaten people, stuff like that, right? But let's jump right into the unconstitutional stuff that I noticed. Disruptive activity / behavior such as noise, music, or voices. Clear violation of the First Amendment, Mr. Lewis. Now, again, this is vaguely written. So downstairs in the library, that is a limited public forum. So my First Amendment protected activity cannot disrupt the rest of the patrons' use of the library. So I can't go in there banging drums and hollering obscenities. But it says right on here, Mr. Lewis, city parks. So that's a traditional public forum. And we have the most protection under the First Amendment in a traditional public forum. So at a city park, I can go there and I could scream obscenities all day. There's nothing you guys can do about that. Bringing in personal possessions or garbage with foul odor, that goes again with the body odor stuff. So what is garbage to you or you guys may not be garbage to someone else. Maybe that is everything they own. And I mean, this doesn't seem like even a legitimate scenario. I mean, do you guys have an issue with people bringing in bags of garbage that's stinking up the place? I mean, maybe it doesn't seem very legitimate to me. Leaving personal property unattended. I hope that you don't think that you can ban someone for leaving their backpack somewhere. Failure to wear clothing covering the upper body, clear violation of the First Amendment. Mr. Lewis, you can't ban someone for wearing a bikini. It does say genitalia. Of course, I can't come in here naked, but this is public. This is the people's building. It's not your personal, privately owned business. And if it was, you could say no red shirts, no bikinis. But if somebody wants to wear a bikini in a public facility, that's protected under the First Amendment. Pornography viewing. Now, although I do not advocate for people watching pornography in public, I'm also against the idea of banning it. And it's a slippery slope. And I think it's dangerous, but I don't have time to go into all the details with that right now, maybe on the next one. But I will just say that the benefit does not outweigh the risk. And Mr. Lewis, you can't do it because it's illegal. So you will get yourself in some trouble with some civil rights lawsuits if you guys try to kick someone out for that. There's lots of things on here. I don't have time to go through everything, but that's just a big bulk of it right there. There's definitely more stuff on here. So I appreciate you, Mr. Lewis, having the conversation with me, saying that you're looking into it. I wanted to bring the rest of this stuff to your attention. Really, what I think we want, the people want, we just want this to go away. We don't need to be told that we're not allowed to harass people or vandalize things or steal stuff. And this policy here, it's policy. And we're not bound to the policy, we're bound to the law. So regardless, you can make policy for the city employees, but we don't have to abide by this, and you actually have no authority to ban anyone, even if they break the law here. So if somebody comes in here and harasses someone and the police are called and they get trespassed, they can come back the next day if they have business here. Now, if they want to get in trouble and do it again, that's on them. They keep getting trespassed, so maybe the courts could determine that they can't come back, but you as the city manager, sir, don't have the authority to ban anyone. So I just want to say, I know I'm running out of time, that when you swear no to the Constitution, it's not just a formality to get the job, sir. So I'm asking you to please honor your oath, and let's get rid of this.
Mr. Cordova, thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions for members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Cordova. All right, that concludes scheduled public comment. We're moving on to unscheduled public comment. Same rules apply, but you're limited to 3 minutes. Up first is Regan Benson, here to speak to Inglewood's response to homelessness. Good evening, Ms. Benson.
And that is a PowerPoint, so. No, it's progressive. There it goes. Good evening, City Council. Regan Benson, Helping Hands for Dignity Coalition. You're looking at frostbite right now. Real cases. Right there, that one is purely black now. That man, same foot, he's losing at minimum half of his foot. That man had his finger amputated. These are real people that us advocates, unpaid advocates, have worked with out here on the streets. One man had that foot right there, had 3/4 of his leg amputated. This is from lack of response and emergency preparedness. That man right there, that foot, he laid on a bench in Inglewood for weeks. And your city spent $1.4 million partnering with Tri-Cities Homelessness. And it says right there in their charter what they're responsible for, and it's response to homelessness. I took this man to the doctor today. I'm essentially married to this man for probably the next 6 months. 3 times a week, wound care, podiatrist, orthopedist. Do you know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars that is on the healthcare system? Because of a lack of emergency preparedness in your city. These are real people. Guess what else I learned today? This man, severe dehydration, hypothermia, malnutrition, had no clue what was going on. Your city cited him twice for urinating in public because the man can't walk. Guess what else I found out today? His family's been looking for him for 3 months because he is in the HMIS system that Mike Sangren can't seem to access through Tri-Cities Homelessness to do a simple Viaspidat. You've heard me talking about that as well. You guys are very lucky nobody died. At least I haven't got word yet that nobody died in Inglewood. We're still missing a 73-year-old man from the last 4 days. 73 years old, had police contact. This is the first time I can ever stand here and say that the Inglewood PD pretty much did a consistently good job until they turned around and arrested this guy that's gonna come talk to you. That's it.
Ms. Benson, thank you for your time. Any questions? Member Wright.
Ms. Benson, you mentioned HMIS system,
Homeless Management Information System.
and can you explain to me what that is? I don't know.
It's a government system, and providers that serve the homeless have access to that through their nonprofit. They can track people. They can track their housing process. So that's what it's for. It's primarily accessed by larger organizations, Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, Denver Rescue Mission, and the like. Some smaller nonprofits can access that system, but it's costly and it takes a lot of training.
Do the police access it?
I'm sorry?
Do the police access it?
No. But you do have a contract with All Health, and they most certainly have access to that system.
And do you know if All Health had contact with the gentleman?
They did have contact with him. He refused shelter a couple of times. He was confused. I went out there, had a very difficult time getting him off the street, but we got him into a motel. He would have died had we not.
So if All Health had contact with him, then they would have entered his information into the system, or should have.
Not necessarily.
Okay, and you as your organization would enter his information into
No,
the system?
I do not have access to the HMIS system.
You do not?
I do not.
Okay. Do cities have, do cities use this? So, I'm confused.
Cities can use it, yes.
Okay, so the police should use this so that if they have contact, you said this man family has been trying to contact him, had police.
That really wouldn't be a role of the police. It would be a role of the third-party contract provider that you have that provides these services, All Health.
Okay, I think this warrants further discussion and education. Thank you so much, and thank you for getting him off the street.
Yes, ma'am.
We appreciate you.
Ms. Benson, with no further questions, thank you very much for your time tonight. Up next is Rick H. Here to also speak about homelessness.
Hello, Council. My name is Ricky Hamilton. I'm I'm currently transient in Inglewood. I was in the police department the other day, and I was transferred there and released as soon as I got there. And they kept me apart from my property and told me I could go down there on Martin Luther King Day to get my property out, which was false. I mean, you could have told me that, and I'm spinning my wheels. I'm spinning my wheels trying to get my property and give them false information about where my property is. I also lost my watch, did not give me a receipt for my watch. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, I was invited here tonight, was that how we're looked as a collective of all of us, and a lot of the mentally ill that are on the street. And then, you see us with a backpack and think all of us are. I'm a science major. I'm paying my daughter's rent and helping her go through school. And I'm being treated like a secondary citizen, and in the HMIS that she's talking about or whatever, I was denied a hotel because of this. Because last year I had a hotel room and a girl passed away in my room. She had a seizure in her sleep and passed away, and now I cannot get service through that. It wasn't my fault. I called them and let them know, and they came, and I was dismissed by the investigation that they did in the room. And it's upsetting to be treated like a secondary class citizen. And we can go to Denny's. The guy there won't serve anybody there, and it's 24 hours. Last time I went there, I spent $44 in tipped. And I went there last time. I sat there an hour, and she would not bring me a menu, and it was because of the manager. I called corporate, and they said thank you, but I think a little bit more education should be done about the homeless that are out here and the collective view as far as who we are and what we are, and the mentally ill. I mean, really. I grew up in the system, falsely diagnosed, everything is privatized. You don't want me to get into that, but I just came back to after 23 years, and this place is messed up. It feels like the citizens are being sold out here, really, to tell you the truth. And it's just for, make room for money, But whatever. That's, the mentally ill here is put out on the streets in front of everybody and dropped off even in downtown. And everybody thinks that we're all like that. And some of us are waiting for housing. I've been on housing since 2020. And I'm disabled. I'm 50 years old. Since I've been here, I've been stabbed. I had my teeth knocked out. And I'm just waiting to die, pretty much. And a lot of people that are in these housing are dying as soon as they get there. I don't know what it is, but I don't think really anybody's taking care about, say, the homeless or those without money to defend themselves. They're written off or put off. They're not given full information or kept at bay.
Mr. Hamilton, thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions for members of council? Go ahead, Member Wright. Mr. Hamilton, we have a couple questions for you.
I want to let you know that I do care and I am listening. Have you been in touch with Movement 5280 and the services that they provide, or any other organizations to help possibly get you into housing and that type of thing?
Yes, ma'am. And I've been going to the current shelter that they had in place at the Lutheran place, and they left a non-staff member there, actually a guy who's in a halfway house there in charge. Someone is like me who is using services, and the lady who's in charge there left him in charge, and they trespassed me. And on the trespass it says representative of the church or this property. That guy is using a facility like I am. So now I can't even get service there.
At the Lutheran place?
Lutheran church, yeah.
Okay, but not at Movement 5280. They're offering.
I went there. Yeah, I went there and I tried to get shelter for the hotel voucher, and said the HMI had me. The guy said, "Yeah, you qualify for it." Sat down and said, "No, you're flagged." And the lady the young lady who passed away last year, as soon as we got the place, we were in this Motel 6. I woke up and I went to go get breakfast. I said, "Hey, we got to get out." And I didn't know she was already dead, but I came back in the room and she, she chewed her tongue. She had a seizure in her sleep and never came to. And I beat myself up for a while over that because I'm an ocean science man. I can bring someone back and watch them out for them and CPR. And I felt really bad about that. And now I'm tagged with that and I can't use the service. And I was never charged with anything. I didn't do any wrongdoing or anything. And I cannot use the service. I haven't flagged. So I don't know what that meant or.
And Miss Benson has your
Yes,
information?
she does.
Okay.
We've been talking, and she's helped me out last couple of nights where the police have sent me in circles. They've helped me out, and they give me a sleeping bag, but my property's still missing. I was never given up property receipts. Just basically what I was saying is I'm gonna look at second-class citizens, and I didn't get proper receipts for my property. And then
Okay.
they said, "Oh, I gotta make a claim." And then they sent me down there when it's Martin Luther King Day. I didn't know the officers. I don't know their hours. He told me to go down and get my property. I have my debit card in there, my laptop, and everything I need with my ID, because everything is stolen. I understand that people here probably tainted other stuff being stolen all the time, but it's not everybody.
Okay, I appreciate
Thank you,
you
ma'am.
telling me what's going on. I think
I have one question.
okay, all right, there's some more questions. I appreciate you coming here, and I am so sorry that you're going through this right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Wright. Mr. Hamilton, just one question. I think you just clarified it. So you have not received all your property back?
No, I haven't. I'm missing my watch and a necklace, and I had a hoodie up under this one here. I'm still wearing the same. And I didn't get that back. It was not even written like fully what I had on. And if I wanted to say, hey, I want my stuff back, or it was a very important shirt or a watch that my dad gave me or something, I can't even.
That was jail.
That's from the jail, yes. But the thing with the church was I can't even I can't dispute none of this stuff, because I'm looked upon as homeless and maybe probably mentally ill too. It's just we're looked at as a collective, and it's not all of us are there.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Member Russell, go ahead.
My question was about your property also, and so I appreciate that, and I'm sorry you're going through this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. With no further questions, Mr. Hamilton, thank you very much for your time tonight.
God bless you.
Up next is Sandy Kittlehut, here to talk about city business. Good evening.
Good
If you could just
evening.
state your name and your address or cross streets.
Sandy Kettlehut, Grace and Eastman. I'm addressing 11AI, the request for reimbursement by Nathaniel Sierra. The invoices that are listed in the attached agenda should have a copy of the item being purchased along with the invoice. Case in point, there is mention of a request for $317.27 for toppers for existing yard signs. The actual invoice at the end of the attached document says it's for custom 18-inch by 24-inch yard signs, corrugated plastic, etc. This does not seem to be for toppers for existing yard signs. How do we know if these yard signs purchased on August 6th, 2023 for the recall or the general election? The picture I gave you shows a sign with no mention of the recall, and that picture was posted on or before August 8th, 2023. It does not appear to be for the recall. Are the signs you purchased for the recall really for the recall, or are they for the general election? The invoice was not for toppers. This is a problem because you were up for recall and re-election, as was Joe, and it becomes confusing, and this is part of the confusion around this whole election. Last week, you stated that you would recuse yourself from the vote. I agree, but there's a problem. There are 2 other city council members that we attempted to recall that could also request reimbursement. They should also recuse themselves from the vote since they would benefit from the result also. Reimbursement is not required, and the members that were being recalled should not have a say in their reimbursement. I hope they choose to recuse themselves also from the vote. Or, Mr. Sierra, you could withdraw your request. Oh, and by the way, notice on the sign, it's posted in the right-of-way, which is incorrect. It shouldn't have been placed there. I'm done.
Thank you. Any further comments? Any further questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you for your time tonight. And that concludes unscheduled public comments. Member Noonan-Camp, you can provide a response when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Mr. Cordova, I wasn't here for the first time you were at council last week. I apologize, I was absent, but thank you for being here and thank you for your feedback as we strive to make sure that the standards that we have in the city and all of our policies are the best they can be to serve our citizens. Ms. Benson, thank you for coming and for your consistent advocacy for those in our community who many overlook. I appreciate you being here and for your feedback. Mr. Hamilton, thank you so much for being here as well. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. It's really helpful and it informs our ability to make policies and to invest resources in the way that they'll be the most helpful to everyone in our community. I hope you hear from this council that we do not see you as a second-class citizen of this city, so thank you for being here. I've also confirmed with staff that we have an officer here tonight out at front. I would like him to speak with you about retrieving your property, so we want to make sure that that happens for you as well. Thank you for being here. And Ms. Kettlehut, we will be discussing that item on the agenda later this evening. I too find it confusing that there was a recall election so close to a general election. And so we'll be discussing that soon. Thank you for your feedback. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Member Nunekamp. Anything else for members of council? Seeing none, that concludes unscheduled public comments. We'll move on to consent agenda items. Just one tonight, 9C1. Anyone have any issues with 9C1? If not, can I get a motion to approve 9C1?
Move to approve 9C1.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Nunekamp. Go ahead, Member Russell.
Actually, I didn't realize that it was on consent agenda.
Did you want to pull?
I would like to pull that because
Okay.
I do have some questions.
Sounds good. All right, so let's back up from the, well, actually, Mr. Parumba, are you able to speak to the contract with the MV Transportation for Trolley Services? Do we have a presentation? I don't think we have a presentation for this, do we? Member Russell, do you have a question regarding the contract? We'll just start there.
Actually, I have several questions. Why did we not put this out earlier? And I guess one of my big questions is, when I was looking through this, because this changed drastically, and my concern is that we had no applications or no responses to the RFP except for MV Transportation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And my concern is, why did we put it in the RFP that the person that we would hire would help us decide what we needed? Why did we not hire somebody to write an RFP that would delineate what we needed instead of putting that in the RFP?
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking about. The scope that we put in there was asking the operators to provide a very collaborative scope with the city that took into consideration our ongoing relationship with RTD, as well as the RTD partnership program grant funds that we were awarded last year, $900,000 in total over the next 3 years. And so it was asking them to really help us select where we could get the most bang for the money in terms of those dollars, with the understanding, and I think it was stated in the RFP, that the full scope would be brought back to council for approvals over 2 IGAs between the city and RTD, as well as the Phase 2 contract between the city and the operator.
So I suppose what I'm talking about is the overview on page 10 in the scope of services. The city is seeking the services of a qualified firm to operate, maintain, and support the Inglewood Trolley per the current baselines of service and the related scope of services as described in this RFP, and subsequently incorporated in the services contract between the city and the selected proposer. It is anticipated that the city services contract will be modified to reflect discussions between the city and the selected proposer, and as such, the city's contract form is not included in this RFP. However, to guide proposers in responding to this RFP, significant detail is included in the scope of services. It seems to me like even MV Transportation would have been able to help us. Why did we not post this RFP so that it would come back before the end of the year?
The timing of the RTD partnership grants was relatively late in the year. And then we spent a lot of time. It's a fairly complex RFP in terms of the stages. RTD needed to review it, and of course that always takes time. So you stack all these things up, and that's where we're at. I mean, as of right now, we've just received the first IGA from RTD legal counsel as it pertains to the RTD partnership grant funds. And we've not yet received their IGA as it relates to their baseline service funding. However, the good news is that because of the timing of it all and RTD being aware of the big increase in overhead costs from MV, they increased their approved budget to actually cover all those costs. So very generous on RTD's part, and that would not have occurred in that manner if that RFP had been issued, or if possible, earlier in the year.
However, one of the problems that I have is that is not included. Their promise to cover some of the overhead in the first 3 months is not included. We're looking for them to do it. It is not in writing, so they wouldn't have to reimburse us for the first 3 months.
We do know what their approved budget is, and we have 20 years of experience with them on this specific operation. We are meeting with them tomorrow to go through additional details, and then meeting with MV for the second meeting on contract negotiations Friday. So it's all moving in the direction that was contemplated in the RFP.
If we have had a 20-year relationship with them, why did we put it out for an RFP this year?
Because we had to. We were basically under city procurement guidelines to the end of the last option year under their current contract.
Was this the last option year?
Yes.
And so even though we can still hire them, even though we got no other responses to the RFP?
Right, because it's a brand new solicitation, and I'll just mention, we worked very hard. I mean, in terms of our outreach to other vendors across the country, and just due to the specifics of the situation we're dealing with here, no one else elected to respond.
So I guess what I'm wondering is why didn't we just temporarily move forward with them and have them help us write the RFP and what we would need to do this?
Well, they are helping us write the specific Phase 2 contract and IGAs that will be brought back for City Council review and approval. So I think we'd be hard pressed to find anybody better equipped to do that, but they're doing it on an advisory basis under the terms of this initial Phase 1 agreement. So.
All right, thank you.
Member Wright?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a few questions, and I apologize, I didn't realize this was on consent agenda either. On this, it's saying approval January 1st through March 31st. By bringing it to us now, isn't this kind of tying councils, although there are not other bids that were put through, tying our hands, council's hands, forcing us to approve this, unless the trolley's not running right now?
I think one thing to understand is this is kind of par for the course in terms of the interactions with RTD. Their budget is usually approved very late, and so that drives things that we do subsequently. The thing that we're aware of is we're aware of how high they approved the budget for this year, And we're aware that in effect, it covers all of the cost exposure for the first quarter of the year. So as a practical matter, there's very little exposure financially on this phase one contract.
And what would have happened if you would have received more bids from other companies?
We would be going through the additional steps of the selection process in terms of possible interviews and, making council aware of how the rating process went with the additional proposers.
Okay. And then I guess it would be on page 2 of this. Something that kind of hit me. It's saying the private sector contributions from developers and owners of new projects within the EDDA area. Isn't that kind of a pay-to-play type of statement that you're looking for developers to contribute into?
It's very typical, and in this case, they would be receiving a service of great value to their tenants. Because what we're trying to do is connect their tenants through to the balance of downtown, but primarily to the RTD light rail and bus station.
And if they chose not to contribute, is there a consequence?
I don't, in all honesty, this is a program that we'll be working on with the DDA over the balance of the year, but I can tell you, we've talked to every new developer, primarily residential in the downtown area, and they all thought it was a great idea and said that they'd be more than happy to contribute on a long-term basis.
Okay, and then I'm almost done here. I'm looking, and this is within the requested proposal. It's on page 17, and it's medical assistance to passengers. And within that process, if there's a medical emergency for a passenger, the driver is to call or radio the program manager of the situation and location, and then the project manager will notify the city fire department paramedics for assistance. Why would we not want the driver to call 911 themselves? I mean, we are delaying emergency assistance time. I would think that we would want the driver to call 911, get the help needed, and then contact the program manager. It seems backwards.
I think it's a good question, so thank you. But MV, I will say, they have a very, very thorough protocol that's been worked out over many years, over many, many contracts. And I would just be guessing that the idea would be if they contacted their program manager, that program manager could quickly get in contact with who they knew absolutely was the best respondent and probably multiple respondents to the emergency call.
And my concern is because of some of the response times that we have seen recently, because, call 911, it has to, transfer stuff. And it's just, I think, something that we could look at. And my last question, I appreciate your patience. Do you know if the drivers know, basic first aid, CPR, that type of stuff? Is that a requirement that the drivers know?
Yes, it is. There's a qualification list that they have to go through, and they're very focused on that. Most of the drivers, one of the pluses of MV is most of the drivers have been on this route for, in excess of 6 years.
Okay, and I apologize, Dan, there was one more.
Yeah.
So the ridership, we have 2020, 2021, 2022, and for 2023, it only goes through May on this. It doesn't go through any further past May, and I'm not sure why we couldn't have more current data on that. When would that come out? It's concerning to me how, although, we're recovering through COVID and stuff like that, that ridership, when I'm looking at it, is still kind of declining.
Oh, yeah.
January it goes up and then it goes down after that. When will this updated writer month over month?
I'm not exactly sure, but I would assume shortly because MV has been very, very good about providing monthly data to the city.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for your patience with me.
Thank you for those questions. And with that, we do have a motion on the table. We have a second. Any further questions? Go ahead, Member Brink. Any further comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paramba, for the presentation. Moving on to public hearing tonight, we have the public hearing for an amendment to a plan unit development 2400 West Union Avenue. This is for Waste Management Denver South Transfer Station. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open hearing.
Thank you, Member Wright. Could I get a second?
Second?
Thank you, Member Noonan-Camp. Can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mr. Bell. I think we want to go ahead and swear. Do we want to swear everyone in at once? So anyone that is going to be giving any testimony during the public hearing or potentially could be giving testimony tonight, could we please stand and just raise your right hand? We're going to swear you all at once. Swear you in all at once. There
So
we go.
anybody who plans to provide testimony, yeah. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this matter now being heard by the Inglewood City Council?
I do.
Great. And then when you do come up, you can just state your name for the record, please.
Mayor?
Good yes, Member Noonan-Camp.
There's a point of privilege. I would just like to share, I've consulted with the city attorney, and on her recommendation, I would like to disclose at the beginning of the public hearing that Mr. Jason Kahn and I know each other from my previous employment. He was a board member at a trade association where I was employed. We have not seen each other in over 4 years. We have never worked in the same company, and I have no financial benefit from tonight's decision. So the city attorney has advised me this is not a conflict of interest that requires recusal, but out of abundance of caution, I did want to let you all know that this will not affect my impartiality on this matter, but I did want to disclose it to the council before we begin.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Member Noonan-Camp. All right, Mr. Bell, you just want to state your name and then go through the presentation?
Yes, my name is Brooke Bell. I am a senior planner with the Community Development Department. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight is the public hearing for a PUD amendment for the Waste Management South Denver Transfer Station. It is case number ZON 2023-002. And before we get into some of the details, let me orient you to the site. Waste Management, which has been here for 30 plus years, is located on the west side of the South Platte River. And if you can follow the PowerPoint here, here is the Platte River to the east of the site. To the north of the site is West Union Avenue. And then South Santa Fe is even further east, South Santa Fe or US 85. And this site really is composed of two parcels. One is the existing waste management parcel, which is on the east portion, and that was part of a plan development in 1992. And then this PUD amendment will include a new western portion of the site, which is currently zoned I-1 or light industrial, and currently it's an outdoor storage use for RVs and whatnot. The entirety of the purple area is about 21.5 acres. So, in terms of a project overview, this is a PUD amendment for a fully enclosed new transfer station building to replace an open building that was demolished after a fire in June of 22. I'm sure you all recall that was in the news. There was a fire, and the building was subsequently demolished, and they've been operating more so out in the open since that time. I mentioned that there was an existing plan development. Plan developments were the precursor to planned unit developments, and there was an existing plan development that was initially approved in early 1992. It was amended in actually late 1992 and then recorded in 1993. Now currently, if there had never been a planned development on this property, a waste transfer station is considered a conditional use in the Inglewood Municipal Code, but having the previous planned development designation, to amend that, you would need to go through the same process as a PUD, and so we wanted to make that not so onerous on the applicant, and also to continue with the PUD amendment process that gives the city a little bit of more flexibility, but also can require more of the applicant. And we'll get into some of the details of that as we go through the presentation. But this PUD amendment will supersede any conditional use process that would be required. And it's actually more rigorous than a conditional use process. The previous transfer station that was demolished in 2022 was approximately 34,000 square feet. The new proposed transfer station, which is fully enclosed, would be about 70,000 square feet. We did have a required neighborhood meeting on June 14th of 2023. At that point, there was really no perceptible opposition to the proposed PUD amendment. So here is the site plan, which is in your packet. This is turned such that north is to the left here. The Platte River is on top, and then to the south is where my pointer is. I did forget to mention that the south property line to the waste management property is actually the city border with the city of Littleton. So it's city of Inglewood to the north, city of Littleton to the south. This is sort of a blow up of the southern portion of the site, or the new fully enclosed transfer station. It's a little hard to see here. You can probably see it better in your packet, but this is the old transfer station location. You can see the new transfer station that'll be fully enclosed is larger. It's also moved farther to the west and a little bit to the south because they need to stay operational, and the applicant can speak to that in their presentation. They need to stay operational while they're constructing this. So I already mentioned that the new waste transfer station will be fully enclosed, and that will help reduce the amount of blowing litter as well as the noise from the waste transfer station. The parking lot will be reconfigured to remove what was a right-of-way encroachment with some of their parking that was close up to West Union Avenue. And it'll also, by moving that out of the right-of-way, it'll provide space for additional landscaping. And I'll just kind of show you up here. This is the reconfigured parking lot. It is now completely out of the right-of-way, whereas previously it was encroaching in the right-of-way. There will be enhanced landscaping along West Union Avenue. That was a request from the city to screen the property and the reconfigured parking lot. And it also includes interior parking lot islands. And then there will be a litter fence that is 20 feet tall that will be extended to the west along the south property line adjacent to multifamily residential. So in essence, the property, the PUD is covering some additional property that is farther west. And so what was a litter fence that they actually obtained a variance for in 2021, that will be extended to cover the extended nature of the property. The property just to the south here in Littleton is an apartment complex, so that will be extended to the west. In terms of parking, the PUD proposes 244 parking spaces, which is 86 over the required amount. And then lastly, in terms of traffic, even though the transfer station is larger than it was previously, they're not looking at increased traffic coming in and out of the facility. And the applicants can speak to that a little bit more operationally as to why they need that. I think is primarily because in a fully enclosed building, they need more actual square footage to do what they were doing in the open space before. So there will not be additional daily trips. I talked a little bit about landscaping and screening. You can see up here to the north along Union, this landscape buffer. You can see the parking not encroaching into the right-of-way. You can also see some landscaping along the west property adjacent to the Platte River. The Platte River Trail is there. There is also some extensive landscaping that is not on the waste management property, that is along the Platte River Trail. And then, as I mentioned previously, along the south property line, currently the 10-foot screening fence, that is an opaque wood fence, runs where my pointer is here, and it stops right there. They will be extending a 10-foot opaque wood fence along this length, which is the new property, and they will also be extending the 20-foot litter fence. So, in terms of some findings from staff, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, this application is consistent with the 2017 Inglewood Forward Comprehensive Plan and the objectives of work, learn, and other environmental goals. In terms of the PUD, under the current I-1 zone district, a new transfer station, there's no requirements there to be a fully enclosed building, nor is there a requirement for a 20-foot height litter or debris fence. We also found that the rezoned property would not have a significant negative impact on the surrounding properties, and that in fact there would be an improvement in terms of noise and litter, and therefore the development review team, made up of various departments, recommended approval based on conformance with the Inglewood Municipal Code regulations. In terms of financial implications, it's a $20 million project roughly. I think the applicant may have some more updated numbers on this. We anticipate a one-time use tax fee and permit and open space fee of approximately $500,000. And then the total annual waste transfer surcharge fees are approximately $800,000 per year. So in terms of a recommendation, and these were partially staff recommendations that were echoed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they added a couple of their own. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the proposed PUD amendment with the following conditions. Number one, that a minor subdivision would be undertaken to combine the two western properties that are owned by the Canfield with, that they would be combined with each other and that be done prior to building permits. Secondly, that the 10-foot opaque wood fence be constructed along the residential property to the south. We met with Littleton. That was also one of their requests. So the developer agreed to do that, the applicant, Waste Management. Third, that a 6-foot fence be constructed along the north property line of the expanded area, and that it would be a new fence between Waste Management and another private property owner that they were also in contact with and also spoke at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. And then that when a final drainage report is done in conjunction with the building permit, that account for any additional runoff from additional parking that would be added. And lastly, that landscaping be increased to 8% of the total area of the property. At the time of the Planning and Zoning Commission, it was at approximately 7.5%. It has since been increased to 9.5% of the overall site to comply with this condition placed on by the Planning and Zoning Commission. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. So no further comments from the Waste Management team, or just moving straight to questions from members of council? All right, go ahead, Member Ward.
I have a few questions, but I think I'll open up with the why first. So there's a couple of options as far as applying the use that they want here and doing the project they want here. The part I'm having trouble grasping my mind around is when I read through the briefing packet, a conditional use would be allowed. At the time this was originally approved, they were required to do what we now refer to as a PUD. Why are we modifying the PUD instead of just removing it and approving this as a conditional use? You've gone through some things that the city's getting, but I don't understand what the applicant or how the applicant benefits from engaging in that process.
Okay, that's a good question. So in terms of amending the PD by our current PUD process, correct, the city was able to say, yes, the litter fence and the screening fence does need to be extended westward over the new property that it affects. That could also be done in a conditional use process. But in terms of for the applicant, under the conditional use process, they would have to meet everything to the letter of the law. And while they're over their landscaping in terms of square footage of land, they're a little under, even though they're adding a number of trees and shrubs, they're a little under in the overall number of trees and shrubs. So they're benefiting from that. So it was, they're also benefiting by going through one process instead of two. So for instance, if we wanted to get rid of the PD that existed from 92 and the amended PUD that also existed from 92, they would go through this process, this whole process that we're going through right now to get rid of the PUD, okay? And then they would do another process through the Planning and Zoning Commission. Then they would go through the conditional use process after that.
So by doing it this way, they can come to us and ask the question once and get the answer once.
Correct.
Okay, that makes some sense. Secondarily, and this might be a larger policy question that I'm getting at here, but this is a place where we handle garbage. Why do we require any landscaping at all? Like, it's an industrial zone. It's always been used that way. What is the point of putting grass there?
And they're not really putting grass there, but they are putting landscape. If you drive along Union or any of our industrial areas, it is better to have landscaping than not landscaping. That's another reason we wanted to do the PUD, because, for instance, percentage-wise, you're right, there is no reason to have a bunch of landscaping in the middle of a 21.5 acre site. It is important to have some screening landscape at the boundaries in terms of along West Union and certainly along the Platte River Trail.
Can we pause there? What is the purpose of that? Why does that matter?
Well, there's a number of there's permeability concerns. There's just environmental concerns in terms of just green and air, and then there's visual concerns. There are people who use Union to get to residential areas. Obviously, there's a lot of people who use the South Platte River Trail. They're on their bikes, they're walking, and so this is a fairly intensive use. A waste transfer station. I've been out there 3 or 4 times, and it's great that they're doing a new fully enclosed facility because it is loud, and you're looking at a lot of garbage moving around.
Okay, then my last question, if I may. We're going from a facility that is somewhat or largely open at this point to an enclosed facility. But we're still using a 20-foot fence under the theory that will prevent trash from escaping. And I'm wondering where that trash is expected to come from if all of the movement of trash is occurring inside a fully enclosed facility already.
That's a good question, and I think I'd like to let the applicant weigh in on that a little bit more. As I mentioned, even before the fire, they had a building. It wasn't fully enclosed, and they clearly had some blowing trash issues, such that they came to the city on their own and said, "We want to build a 20-foot high fence." Our code actually doesn't allow for that. We allow for up to a 12-foot high fence in the industrial areas. So they went to the Board of Adjustment for a variance, which was approved, and they built it, and they've got some photos of that in their PowerPoint presentation. In terms of why they're continuing that now, it may just be a best practice and out of their own goodwill. I think it's probably a good idea. I don't think the operation is ever going to be perfect, so that's my guess. It's somewhat out of goodwill.
Can we hear from the applicant on that, if you don't mind?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Do you want me to stay up? And
Yeah,
I mean, they're going to do a presentation in a moment here, I believe.
Okay, sounds good. Member Wright.
Hi there. Nice to see you again.
Yes.
It may be the applicant that needs to answer some of my questions. Since I believe it was June of 22, the big fire that was there, I live just west of the transfer station, probably the closest of all the council members. How many additional fires have been at that transfer site? I know that fires are common. I have seen several of them because I do drive Union quite often. So do you know how many additional fires there have
I do
been?
not, and I think they can probably speak to that. I do know that even before this fire, they were planning on doing some upgrades to some fire suppression sorts of things in the facility. This new building will obviously incorporate all of that and probably then some. But I can't answer that. I have learned a lot in this process, and I think that it's an issue in that industry.
Right, and understandably, people don't think when they're doing things with trash. And that's part of my question about the fire suppression. It was explained to me a little bit why you want it enclosed, but I'm curious as to how that fire suppression will work when it's inside, and how prevention, to me it's mind-boggling. You're fully enclosed, you don't want a fire that way, but I'm sure that there is certain fire suppression that is going to be put in place, and
Sure.
Someone was telling me, well, they just water it down constantly to prevent that. I'm like, well, doesn't that make it heavier? So if that's something that could
Yeah, I don't have the best answers to that. I do know that our fire marshal as well as our building division have been involved in the review at this stage. This is really more of a zoning approval stage.
I got you.
But they will be equally and more involved as they go through the building permit process.
Okay. And then of the 244 parking spots, how many of them are going to be for employees? How many of them are going to be for the actual trash trucks? And then, of course, I know, Waste Management has, heavy equipment that they use to transfer them to the semis or whatever they use to, haul off the trash to the permanent dump site. So is that the total amount for all equipment that is used?
My understanding that it does not include, if you look at the plan, I got to go all the way back to the start, but actually no. There is a lot of parking
Inside it and
in this area, and that's parking for the trash trucks themselves. And that, my understanding is that is not in the 244 spaces.
Okay.
The 244 spaces are for the employers. So the drivers of those trash trucks, employees at the waste transfer facility themselves.
Okay. And then one more question. Union gets beat up. It's just not Waste Management trucks. You've got other haulers that come in and dump and stuff like that. And Union needs some love. But if you're going to have construction and other heavy equipment during this build come in, who, or is there something within the document that I may have missed, going to repair Union because there's going to be additional heavy equipment and construction trucks coming through Union during the construction of this repair Union for Inglewood?
So yes, it will remain operational during construction. And there are some city plans for the Union Bridge as well as Union Avenue. I can't speak to those plans directly. We do have somebody here from the Public Works Department, if you'd like, that can speak a little bit as to the status of Union Avenue as it relates to what's in the budget and how that may relate to this project.
Well, never mind. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Member Russell.
Thank you. Along that same lines, I noticed that in the plans, they say that when the new facility is completed, there is they're not intending any extra traffic on Union. However, my question is the size of trucks that will be coming there going to be increasing?
In terms of their tonnage or whatever?
Tonnage and size, much larger.
My understanding is that they won't, but I think that's also a good question for the applicant.
Okay, I will ask them that. And so how does the city currently recover costs for infrastructure, say, such as paving Union? Are there charges to Waste Management to cover the use of the roads?
I don't know that they're specifically earmarked. And again, we may want to have Public Works chime in here, but I don't know that the tipping fees that they pay are specifically allocated to a specific road or necessarily even to the Public Works budget. I believe it's something that goes into the general fund. But it, there is it's a different fee than just what other businesses pay. Beyond that, I don't know that I have the best answer for that.
Okay, I appreciate that, and it might be a good idea to have Public Works weigh in. if they have the answer to that question also.
Would you like to have that now? It might be appropriate.
I think he's on the way up, so.
Okay, great.
Thank
Actually,
you.
Mr. Bell, just a quick question.
Yes.
I think I'm a little bit confused, and maybe I'm the one that's a little bit confused since we haven't had a PUD in a while, but normally we have staff presentation as well as
Applicant.
the applicant's presentation at one time. That way we're able to ask all the questions at once. And it seems to me that we're going to have a applicant presentation after this as well. Am I
Yes.
understanding that correctly?
Yes.
So it's, to
So
me,
what-
I think that that's probably inefficient, but since we've gotten here to this point, we'll continue with this process.
Okay.
Director Rochelle, do you want to get sworn in before you answer the question?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this matter now being heard by the Inglewood City Council? Great. State your name and position for the record, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Council and Mayor. Victor Rochelle, Director of Public Works for the city. Councilmember Russell, yes, to answer your question, so the tipping fees, my understanding is they go to the general fund, and then Public Works Department requests funds for capital projects funded out of the general fund, which we do have money allocated for the road replacement as well as bridge replacement. At the moment, we're currently undergoing a study for what the roadway section needs to look like based on current traffic volumes, including the classification and weight of the vehicles out there on the roadway.
Do we assess whether tipping fees are sufficient? I mean, like we charge other fees, do we do the same with tipping fees?
My understanding is the tipping fees were actually reviewed, I want to say 1 or maybe 2 to 3 years ago and adjusted. So it is something that we try and monitor and coordinate with our finance department.
Okay, thank you. And then, I mean, we enter into yearly contracts, right, with waste management or other people as well. Is that correct?
I'm only aware of waste management for the tipping fees. I'm currently not aware of any others at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Any other questions for members of staff? Go ahead, Member Brink.
Thank you. So I'm still trying to get at the benefit of the additional parking spaces. So when the plan speaks to no increased traffic and trips per day, so that to me, I'm making an assumption that there's no then increased capacity of processing on a daily basis, correct? So then can you explain to me what the benefit of the additional 86 parking spaces is?
So they're not necessarily adding 86 additional spaces. We're looking at how many spaces do they have, and they did need to reconfigure their parking lot to get it out of the right-of-way. The required parking spaces is not an exact science. And in fact, in this case, we needed to lean on the applicant some to know really what do they need for their employees. And I think they've struck a good balance here. I mentioned that they're over what would be required. Well, the way we were calculating what would be required is we don't have a specific parking ratio in our code for waste transfer stations. We have specific things for restaurants, we have specific things for residential, but for industrial, it gets a little bit more of a gray area. So for instance, we have a parking requirement for warehousing and storage or manufacturing. Neither of those are even a waste transfer station necessarily. One space per 1,200 square feet of facilities. Okay, so they have a transfer station that's a certain size, the building. So that's part of the calculation. The other part of the calculation is there's a couple other buildings on the site here. This is actually an office building for their Denver South headquarters. That does have a very specific, for those office workers, parking requirement of one space for 300 square feet. So we use those two requirements and came up with a number of required parking. They're over that. you could argue that they're somewhat employee, this is a pretty employee-heavy operation because you have so many drivers of the trucks that are all parked here. So they probably need those extra spots. And the applicant might be able to speak to that as well. I would have been more alarmed if all of a sudden, if you look at some aerial views of the site, the parking lot was pretty full, and has been so we relied a little bit on what's been going on for the last 30 years, and trying to see what's a right-sized parking lot.
Member Russell?
Thank you. So my question about parking is there ample parking now, do you believe, to keep from using the right-of-way for employee parking? Or were waste management employees using the parking area in Centennial Park, one of the parking areas?
I have heard some comments about some employees using that. I don't know the extent of it. And again, it's some people made some comments about that. I think the applicant can address that. I don't think it's, the aerials views that I've seen don't seem to have a lot of people parking there that are doing that. So it's a little bit of speculation. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen.
Okay.
But it doesn't seem to be, something that is a huge thing. But they might be able to speak to that a little bit better.
So the 86 spaces are over and above the amount of spaces that they had before?
I do not believe it's over and above what they had before. It's over and above what would be required by our municipal code.
Okay. But you just said that we don't have an exact science for how many spaces they need, so.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions from members of council? All right, we'll move to the applicant's presentation.
I'm trying to get there. Let me see here. There we go.
All right, perfect. And if there's anyone else that may speak or provide answers to any questions from council, can we just swear everyone in again? Because I don't think everybody, did we swear everyone in or? We did?
Is there anybody else from your team that would be speaking?
Potentially?
No. Okay.
All right, perfect. We're good
It
to
would
go then.
depend on the questions, but I should be able to take care of most
All
of
right,
it
there we go.
myself. We do have other people here, but I'm planning on
All right,
taking
sounds
care.
good. If we throw you a curveball, we'll just swear them in at that time, so. We're good. All right, if you just want to state your name and your position and then.
Well, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Jason Kahn. I'm our Director of Planning, Development, and Strategy for WM. And I'll be talking about our facility here today, so. A couple of the points that were discussed here, I'll kind of have an overview, so hopefully I'll be able to answer some of the questions that were asked as well. Well, you did staff discussion here. So, result of the fire, the buildings were rendered unusable and we did remove them. As noted, we were almost about to start construction on remodeling those facilities when the fire happened, and that did include putting in a full fire suppression system at the time. And unfortunately, and we're not the only ones that are experiencing this across the country, we are seeing more fires in our transfer stations, in our recycling facilities, at our landfills. Some of it is due to a lot of lithium-ion batteries being thrown away. And I'm not going to give you an example today, but there's multiple examples if you go online. And it's, sometimes all it takes is throwing that on the ground or hitting it with something, and it generates enough heat to start a fire. We don't know that that's how this fire started. It could have been attributed to fireworks. It was when the avalanche won. So there's a lot of factors that play into that, but we are upgrading most, if not all, of our facilities across the country with fire suppression. We experienced a similar loss in Commerce City a few years ago. Very similar to this, catastrophic fire, and we just finished remodeling and updating that facility to the same standards what we're presenting to Inglewood, with some improvements that we've learned since then. So we've done this in many areas across the country. Unfortunately, not always ahead of when the fire happens, but many of our facilities are already upgraded, and those fire suppression activities are designed to generate based on heat, and they are set off. They can also be manually activated by employees if they see a fire, and we do a lot of training on fire suppression and fire control. So just want to kind of address that a little bit now, and I'll talk a little bit about it later as well. Obviously, this project is to reconstruct the facility that was damaged as part of the fire. So we do have an agreement with the neighboring Canfield property already to coincide with this development as well. So that is already negotiated out and in place. Reconstructed facility will continue to manage MSW, which is municipal solid waste. Comes from both commercial, industrial, residential areas, as well as we do manage commercial and residential recycling at the facility as well. So we'll continue to manage that. And we know with changing regulations, we may manage separated out organics or yard waste in the future as well. Right now, that isn't a requirement to separate it out, but that is something that we are prepared to do in the future. A little bit about what this is going to address, and this will hopefully address some of the questions that came up as well. Again, it is a fully enclosed facility, and what that means is, and I'll go into more detail when the slide is up, is all the tipping of the materials, unloading will take place inside the facility, and then it will be pushed into a truck in the backside and loaded into a transfer trailer under roof. And so the size of the building, and you saw that earlier on the presentation, most of that size increase is to allow the trucks to turn and back up and unload, which is currently, or I guess in the past, because now it's open air, was all done outside of the building. So all of those activities now will happen under roof, and that accounts for the size increase on the building. So I wanted to call that out first. The public drop-off, we do get public that come in. It's a mix of different customers. We obviously are concerned about their safety. We don't want them intermingling with these commercial trash trucks that come in to the facility that collect from residential or commercial businesses. And to answer the question that came up earlier, the size of the trucks coming in and the size of the trucks going out will not change in any way. It's the same business coming in and going out pre-fire, after fire, and after construction of this facility. The public, however, we do have a separate area that we stage them in to make sure that we don't have residents or customers in the way of these trucks so they don't get run over and other things that could happen with heavy trucks and heavy equipment pushing this waste. So we have safety in mind as part of this facility as well. The building is located further from the Platte River. That's on purpose to keep us a little further from the river. And since the fence came up, I'll answer that question now as well. And I'm going to try to answer some of the questions so the presentation might not match exactly what's up on the screen. The reason we put the fence in was definitely because of blowing litter. We feel that we will control as much as possible of the trash inside the building, the recycling, but there is always a chance that stuff could blow out of a truck if coming in. There's some waste or material that could get outside the building. Our goal is to protect the Platte River, the community around us, as much as feasible. We believe that the existing fence that we put in 2021, coupled with expanding that along that south property, will provide the
Welcome
best
to Elevate.
protection of not only the river, but of the community around us. So we would like to leave that as part of this development. It is additional. I have some pictures that I'll show you as far as what it looks like as well. It is not a high visibility, bright fence. It's see-through, but it does the job of keeping those materials on our site so we can pick them up faster and more efficiently and not have to have them go off our property, which is really what we're trying to control. So from an environmental standpoint, it is definitely something we would like to keep there, the existing one, and expand because it does the best job in addition to all of the other things that we're going to talk about with, the enclosed facility. Fire suppression, just talked a little bit about that. The facility will have the state-of-the-art fire suppression in it. We are always looking at improving those systems. There are systems now that have AI built into them. This facility won't have that yet. It's still experimental, but some of our recycle facilities where we sort all the waste out, we have what's called fire rovers. They have AI. They can actually see hot spots and flames, and they go off automatically based on that. We are continuing, as times change, we will continue to improve that. But the fire system there will sense heat, smoke, and it will also be able to be manually activated. It is another improvement as part of the PUD process. We are expanding a fire loop around there as well to make sure there's adequate water supply to the fire suppression, and if there is a fire, to the fire department as well. So there's a lot of other improvements besides just the fire suppression going into the facility to ensure that we limit any size of the fire. We can't 100% say there will never be any fire, but I think what we are trying to do is we will not see any damage from fires if they so happen. And we've seen success across the country with very similar systems in other facilities and not had any catastrophic fires since we put the systems in. The parking item that just came up. So this came up at the planning and zoning meeting as well. I discussed it there. I added this to the presentation after. So first off, the parking spots for what we're talking about employees are different than our truck parking. That is a completely separate number. We run about 125 to 130 routes out of this facility, so a route takes a truck. Those are completely separated from the employee parking. So this number of 244 applies to employee parking. We did a count of where we think we'll be with employee numbers as we build up, and we are at about max capacity at that facility for trucks as well from a collection standpoint. So we really don't have any additional room to add. We are looking at expanding into Denver Metro as well to space trucks out as it grows in the southeast side of the city, and some of the trucks could or will maybe come from this facility, which would reduce not only truck parking but employee parking as well in the future. But we have a count of 224 employees at Denver South, and this facility is not just a transfer station, it's also a hauling or a collection company. So the 224 is managers, admin, drivers, helpers, mechanics, and other staff for that facility. The 13 for the transfer station is scale house attendants, laborers, and heavy equipment operators. And it doesn't take a lot of employees to manage this material. All of the transfer truck drivers are managed and housed out of another facility in Commerce City. So we have no transfer truck parking or tractor parking that pull those trailers. That's housed out of our Commerce City facility. And those trucks start there and then come over here and then go to the landfill, and they kind of manage both facilities from that facility. So 237 total, and that's at peak. So we definitely have room to increase that number with the addition of the Canfield property. And where we put that additional parking, we believe if we needed to add parking, we could easily adjust that number upwards as well to ensure that all employee parking will be on WM property. So I wanted to address that. The site provides services for Inglewood and the surrounding area. It is not just servicing Inglewood, it serves, the Denver metro area. We have a number of haulers. I have a slide later in here that use the facility. Hundreds of the public and many other competing waste haulers also use this facility to unload their trash and recycling, and then we haul that either to the landfill and or a recycling facility. We have met with with Littleton, as he noted. We are right on the border. We did meet with their staff, and we got some feedback, and we have addressed that as part of the comments and the requirements. The 10-foot opaque wood fence was from the discussion with Littleton. There is an existing 10-foot screened fence there right now. It's chain link. The preference was to match what we had on our south property. So we made a change to change that to 10-foot opaque wood to match existing, and that was in the discussions with Littleton. They're very supportive of what we're doing with the enclosed facility, controlling litter and everything else there. So we did proactively meet with them to ensure, again, this is a community relation thing that we want them to be supportive as well, even though it is in Inglewood. As he noted, we did conduct a neighborhood meeting on June 14th. We had a few people show up. We shared what you guys are seeing. We talked to them at length and didn't have any opposition from them other than saying quicker, sooner, faster to get it in place. So lastly, this amendment we discussed with staff. Obviously, we were planning to do an improvement before, so we've been working with staff to see which is the best course forward, and whether conditional use or planned unit. We did have an existing planned unit development. It seemed, based on discussions, that the planned unit amendment made the most sense. We are addressing anything that comes up from the city planning staff, as well as comments that we've received from around there. With approval, we would expect to start construction in 2024. We are pretty far along in the planning process on design plans, and the project would be expected to be completed mid-2025, and that could flex a little up or down. Very similar picture to what he showed. A couple things I do want to point out. This portion here is our collection facility. And you can see what he kind of pointed out earlier. This is where, and you see a few trucks that are not out on route at this time. This is where all of our collection trucks park. So they either collect MSW and recycling. And then this building here is the office / shop for those trucks. So that's the 224 people that are there. The back side of this property, and in this picture, the buildings are still showing pre-fire. This is one building here. Another building here. They were built at two different times, one in the 80s, one in the 90s. So this facility has been improved over time. One other thing to note, all of a great majority of our trucks that we run out of here are fueled off of CNG. We did install a CNG facility at this site several years back. It's cleaner for the environment, longer term, more sustainable. So a large majority of the trucks at this facility are running off natural gas. That facility, the fueling station, is kind of here, and it slow feeds all of these trucks here. This is the Canfield property. Just wanted to call that out. That's the new property. a portion of the Canfield property runs right here, and it kind of cuts through this old building here. So we've leased property from the Canfields for many years, and past regulations were different. We, at that time, were allowed to build the buildings over the property lines. So that is a change that is no longer allowed. And so the reason, one, that we want to move the facility is to make sure it can be constructed on a single property, not two different cross property lines, but also to keep the facility operational while we are in construction. So, and then secondarily, it allows us to improve to the fully enclosed facility and get further away from the river. So I wanted to call a few of those things out. That existing 20-foot fence stops right here right now. And where we are looking to continue it is just this small portion along the south. So I'll go into a little bit more detail on what that fence looks like shortly. This is very similar to what he showed. Again, Union Avenue is over here to the north. This is the Littleton Englewood border, and then the Platte River is here. I want to kind of point out some of the traffic flows so you can understand the enclosed facility. This is where our scale house is located currently. There's some employee parking here as part of the plan. Trucks come into this facility. They go onto the scale. They're all weighed in, materials tracked. The pass flow went over into here, and they unloaded on this side of these buildings over here. Again, not under the roof. The new facility, they will still go across the same scale house. They will drive around this facility, come here, enter inside the building here, and then they will turn and back up into a series of spots to unload, all under roof. They will then drive out of the facility on this side, go back across the scale, and leave. Now, the waste and the recycling that are unloaded in there, transfer trailer trucks will come from our Commerce City facility. They will come in the same scale facility, and that's a tractor trailer. They can haul about 20 to 25 tons of waste on them, similar to what we are using now, no change. They will come in here, go into this is the tunnel here. They will go down in this tunnel, and they will park under either one unloading station here or another unloading station here. And those are all under roof, and that waste will be pushed and dropped into the trailer. It helps, one, there are scales under here to make sure that we are meeting DOT weight compliance as well, which is 80,000 pounds. It also ensures that there is no litter blowing from this process, putting the waste into the truck. Previously at this facility, we did have a couple load holes. They were not fully necessarily covered when we were completing some of it. Currently, it's all being done open air, and we are controlling that process. This litter fence is also helping us right now. Those trucks will then drive out here, come back around the facility, way out here. They will either then go to the recycling facilities in Denver or the landfill in Aurora to unload and then come back. The general public will be in an area out here. Traditionally, most of the loads that come in from the general public are non-blowable type items. So we've monitored this waste for years. It also keeps them out of the traffic flow. Again, as I mentioned, that waste will then be pushed into the building and loaded out through the same load holes. But they will be in a separate area. And I want to kind of call out the parking here a little bit. It's easier to see on this diagram. So everything here, as I'm kind of going along, is truck parking. And when I say truck parking, are collection vehicles. The employee parking will start in the front of this building, go over in here, come back here, all the way around. out of the city right away. It will go up in here. That's one area. There's another area of employee parking back here, mainly for the technicians that work at the collection facility. There's ample spots here for the scale house attendants. There's parked right by the scale house. That's where they pretty much work all day. And then we have some additional employee parking over here. And then the addition is several spots right here, and then some additional spots right here. If we needed to expand in here further, there's space here to expand several spots as well. So we are fully addressing employees being able to park on our facility.
Mr. Khan, I'm not sure if we need to, I'll defer to my council members. I'm not sure if we need to go into this level of detail, but if we do have questions about some of this detail, we may ask it as part of the questions, but if you could just hit some of the higher level points on the next few slides as well.
Okay. A couple pictures in here. This is just a rendering. This is an elevated view from the south. So you can see the tunnel here and the roof over where we would unload. This is the door that the trucks would enter into, and then they would unload inside the facility. You can see this is the litter fence. Again, this is a generated view. This is the 10-foot opaque wood fence on the south side. This is a view from the river trail that runs along the Platte River. Again, this is existing chain link screen fence, and the litter fence is shown in here. I do have an actual picture I will show you as well. This is a view from the south again, from ground level. And that shows that litter fence and the 10-foot opaque fence as well. There is a basketball court in existence there on that south property, so we tried to make it as real as possible. I wanted to go in a little bit of detail as well. I know there was some questions on fees. This is a historical account of what WM has paid the city of Inglewood. That fee historically was $1.67 for every incoming ton that came into the facility. And then we remit that on a monthly basis to the city of Inglewood. That rate changed at the beginning, I believe it was 1/1 of 2023. It went from $1.67 to $2.10. The number shown here on the bottom is through November, but total for 2023 was a little bit over $914,000 paid to the city of Inglewood for those fees. And again, we don't delegate where that goes to. I will let the city discuss that internally. I also wanted to call out some of the property taxes. We use other roadways in Arapahoe County, so we do pay, real estate taxes and personal property taxes over the historical, about 2.3 million of property tax and just over 600,000 of personal property taxes. There were some questions that came up on the planning and zoning meeting of this facility just being for WM. Yes, we heavily use the facility. That's part of our internal plan to be efficient and manage waste with our hauling company being right there. This is a top customer listing. By no means does it entitle all of the companies that are using this facility. It's just the top 20 really. So you can see Republic Services, 5280, Western Roll-Off, Blue Bear, several other competing companies also use this facility. In the same fashion that we are, it's more efficient and not manageable to drive all the way to the landfill with a single truckload that only hauls 8 to 9 tons. So it's more efficient to consolidate at a transfer station and let that company then haul it to the landfill. As you can see, we track our internal recycling. Many of these third-party companies also haul recycling into the facility as well. I'm not gonna go into too much detail on the stipulations that Brooke talked about, but we are addressing all of them and have agreed to all of them. The only one I will kind of point out currently on the landscaping, with what we've been working on with city staff, we're sitting above 9% with what we're looking at currently. So we're still finalizing all of that, but everything else we have agreed and will provide as requested. I won't go into much detail here other than, we appreciate the opportunity, one, to present. We've been part of the community in the city of Inglewood for a long time. A lot of our employees, I should say all of our employees, live in the surrounding community, which includes Inglewood. We believe that this is the right thing for us to do. We are upgrading it to the enclosed facility for many reasons, but most of them protect the environment and to be a better community partner as well. And I'm not going to read the rest of it. Couple pictures that I did want to show you here, just because it's came up and it's easier to see an actual picture than a rendering. This is the existing fence. This is what the existing fence looks like along the river trail. This is that 20-foot tall litter fence. So pretty able to see through it, pretty easy. It does its job. This is the 10-foot opaque wood fence that we will be extending. It goes down to about right here right now that we will be extending. I wanted you to be able to see that. And then this is just another view from the actual river trail. Again, here's that litter fence. And again, this is pretty recent in December, so you can see we are operating here open air. But this is the 6-foot screen chain link fence. That's there existing that we're not planning to change, but we would like to leave this. We don't believe that it's causing much visibility, and I think most people that use the trail actually appreciate the fact that WM put it in and is trying to keep that river corridor cleaner. So I had a lot to present there, but
Perfect. Thank you very much for the presentation. Was it Khan, the last name? What was your last name?
It's pronounced Khan. It's spelled C-H-A-N.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan, for the presentation.
And just so you guys know, I do have a little bit of a hearing disability, so if I don't hear you the first time and ask you to repeat it, I just wanted you guys to know that I do have a little bit of problems hearing sometimes.
I appreciate that. You did a great job in the presentation. Any questions for members of council? Anything that wasn't answered as of the initial round of questions? I think you did cover just about everything that was asked for in terms of the parking, landscaping. Obviously, I'm on the Platte Trail quite a bit, so I appreciate all the work that's being done there as well. So, all right, no further questions. Mr. Khan, thank you very much. City Clerk, do we happen to have any public comment tonight?
Nobody has signed up.
No sign up, no one online or... Perfect. All right. With no further questions from members of council, thank you very much for the presentation, gentlemen. Thank you very much, city staff. If I can get a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Wright. Can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonekamp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you very much. And thank you again, Waste Management, everyone from Waste Management coming up and staff. We will be bringing this forward for a vote, I believe, the first Monday in February, which I believe is the 5th or the 6th. So thank you again for your time tonight. Do we need a short break before we move on to the rest of the agenda, or should we just move forward? I'm fine as is, so keep moving. All right. Perfect. We're moving on to agenda item 11A1. This is the reimbursement of recall election expenditures by me pursuant to CRS 314504.5. City Attorney Niles, is there anything to add on your side? I know we didn't really chat about this, but I can kind of just cover my piece of it, or at least what the request is for. So, nothing on your side?
I don't have any specific information to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, perfect. Go ahead, Member Russell.
And I had a few questions already from the last time that I sent in. Has any council member in the city of Inglewood ever exercised this option in the past?
Not that we know of. We researched that and couldn't find any record of it. The last recall was 2018, and there was no request for reimbursement at that time. So we don't show that anyone's ever requested it, so that council's never considered it.
Okay, and then when did Colorado Revised Statutes 31-4-504.5 go into effect?
I looked up the legislative history. This statute was first added to state law in 1979, and it was amended in 84, 91, and the last effective date was April 4th, 1991. So it's been in its current form since then.
And is there a statute of limitations on this statute?
There's not in the statute itself, but Colorado law does provide a limitations period for claims of action when it's not already provided. I don't have that in front of me, but I believe it's 3 years.
Okay, and let's see. So Mayor Sierra, did you receive any donations from your supporters to offset your costs
Thank you,
for the recall?
No, so thank you, Member Russell. No, this was all self-funded.
And did you present a committee report regarding your recall?
No, since it was a small committee report, and City Clerk, correct me if I'm wrong here, as long as expenditures and I guess also donations did not exceed $5,000, it did not have to submit a committee report.
Okay, you don't have to submit a committee report, but because you're seeking reimbursement, I mean, I think it would be open and transparent to do that. One of the speakers tonight brought up about an invoice. It's from Imprint. It clearly states on that invoice it is for 18 by 24 yard signs, and that is the amount that you claimed for the toppers.
Let me take a look at that one. Give me 1 second while I pull up. So no, the toppers, okay, so the toppers, the 18 by 24 is correct, but there was 6 or so that you were able to cut, that you were able to just place on top of the existing signs. So it was 18 by 24, but it actually allowed for, I want to say 5 toppers that you could cut into a single, you put it on top of the existing sign, so.
I thought weren't they kind of like sleeves that fit over the top of the sign?
Yeah, well, yeah, you had to use kind of like metal holdings in order to keep them in place. But yeah, it was just basically just about this big. I wish I still have a few of them at home, but I wish I would have brought them. But you had to cut it to size in order to make it fit on the existing.
Okay, and so you didn't, in the request that we have from, I think it was last week, the list of things that you said that you were requesting was from imprint.com, $317.27, toppers for existing yard signs.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the invoice in here that says custom 18 by 24 inch yard signs, material corrugated plastic, number of imprint colors 1. It does not say anything about toppers.
Right, that's correct. Now, looking at that, it does make it look like it's yard sign, but also, yeah, it shows 50 there, but it doesn't give you any detail about what was on the yard signs, just the fact that I ordered 18 by 24. So you're right about that.
Okay, so I think that probably you would need to remove that $317.27. I do have more questions, but go ahead.
Sure.
I'd like to speak to this since it was brought up, and I'd done the same thing as Mayor Sierra here. for my recall, and that was we ordered 18 by 24 signs that were then subdivided to make the toppers. So 18 by 18 inches divides into 5. They're 3.6 inches once you cut them into 5 pieces. So that is the exact, to get 250 3.6 inch toppers, you take 50 18-inch yard sides and divide them 5 times. So that's how the mayor did his, that's how I did mine. That's what that invoice is for.
But it doesn't clearly delineate on the invoice that it was to be divided. It doesn't show that, just says no approval required. That is problematic. And so I do have a question for you. Mayor Pro Tem, do you intend to exercise your right to reimburse yourself, for the city to reimburse you for your recall?
I didn't spend money. I collected donations for my campaign, so I don't have the right under this law to do that.
Okay, so your answer is no, you do not intend to do that.
I legally can't.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Councilmember Noonenkamp, do you intend to be reimbursed from the city for your expenses for recall?
I'll be addressing that in my comments tonight.
I want an answer to that question right now before we vote on this.
I'll be addressing that in my comments before we vote.
Thank you, Member Noonenkamp. Member Wright, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, and I guess my concern is, and I believe that Ms. Kettle had addressed this. All these dates coincide with the election also, and I believe she had stated either, and it may have been an email, and I apologize, from someone also, during our campaign also. So people are asking, can we see, I don't live in your district, I don't know what district you live in, Member Frank, I apologize. No one can see what the actual flyers and stuff look like. I believe Ms. Dickerson was here last council meeting, and she was holding a flyer saying, this is the only thing that I received. And since this was during campaign season also, I think that's a concern of your constituents and other people. So I would actually like to see, and those that are here still, you know, what these look like. There you go. Ask and you shall receive.
So there were concerns by some cities about what was mailed during it. So because this was a recall, I didn't have time to properly do everything that I would do in a general election. So I wasn't able to do the every door, every mailer, or every mailer, every door, whatever it stands for. So not everyone did receive one. So I had to basically identify who exactly I wanted to send them to. So not everyone in my district received them. So this is what the mailer was. It was just a simple vote no on the recall. That was it. In terms of the door hangers, this is what I walked around and sent to people. So it does say vote no to the recall and basically just the reasoning for it. And basically it was a carbon copy of what I've used in the past just to save time. Ms. Dickerson did show what I sent during the actual general election, which was different and did conform to the USPS, every door, every mailer dimensions that was sent out.
So I'm trying to see here. So the postcard, the red and white one, which was, I believe, widely used by everybody, those colors were widely used by everybody under recall, correct? Because we saw them all over the city. Is that the 4 1/4 by 11?
That's correct.
And there were, oh no, it's smaller than that. So I see 4 1/4 by 11, 4 1/4 by 11. The 4 by 6,
yeah, the 4 by 6.
So there was 1,761 of those.
Correct.
But I don't see mailing for Oh, addressing, postage. So you sent out 5,000 of those?
No, I bought 5,000 of them with the intention of actually sending them out to every
Oh,
single door.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just said it, 1,761.
1761 were the ones that were sent out.
Postage, yes. Okay, and then, so the 4 1/4 by 11 are those, and you had 200 printed one time, and then 1,250 printed another time.
Correct.
So the 25th, and then the 2nd. Okay. Okay, and I don't know if it's appropriate to ask, but is it because of timing that you didn't receive donations like Mayor Pro Tem or?
Oh, no, I just never seek donation. I don't purposely go out and seek, I try to self-fund my campaign.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Member Wright. Any further questions for members of council? Go ahead, Member Ward.
I think one thing, Mayor, that could resolve the question over what the yard signs was, I noticed on the invoice there's a reference to the artwork. Do you happen to have the artwork that you uploaded to the printer?
I don't have it on me. I should have brought the topper.
I know I did see toppers around town.
Yeah, so I had the toppers. I should have brought a copy, but I don't have it. But yeah, it's basically just, what was it? Vote no, Kipo, October 3rd. Very simple. And it rhymed. So, but I will provide that to members of council. So, once I do find it, I'll check my email here while you ask the question. Go ahead, Member Nooncamp, and then Member.
Just for a point of clarity on this point, for your reelection campaign, did you purchase any new yard signs?
For my general election?
Correct.
No.
Thank you.
Member Pring.
Yeah, to the question marks on the invoices and what it provided or didn't pay for, are you willing to just get proof from these companies and bring in what you actually purchased to show council so that all of that can be cleared up and it's no longer a matter of a question mark of whether what you purchased was appropriate, and we can just show the justification that yes, these were appropriate, and then get into whatever other issues council members might have.
I do plan
this
on
reimbursement.
looking for that image in order to show what it looks like.
Okay, thank you.
That to council. Go ahead, Member Wright.
Yes, may I see that red and white card? Member Noonencamp, Mayor Pro Tem, did you use these cards also? Hand them out at any event? Put them on doors? Use them at all during the recall campaign?
There was a committee that paid for the booth at the block party that used similar branding, but no, I did not use those in any of my door knocking.
Okay, and Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, oh, and I see it says registered agent. Okay, thank you both. And District 1. Okay, that clears up some of that because it's on there.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Wright. Any further questions? And I'll just state, so the simple reason for why I'm requesting this is obviously due to the CRS that allows me to seek reimbursement. Really no other reason behind it. Obviously, I self-funded. If there's additional information that council or members of council would like, I completely understand that. But yeah, so basically it's just the fact that we are allowed under state law to seek reimbursement for this, and the other two members of council that were also up for recall and were unsuccessfully recalled are also able to seek that, but that's basically the reasoning behind it. So, and with that, go ahead, Member Russell.
If you're willing to bring in that extra information, I would like to postpone the vote on this until you bring that, just out of due diligence for the citizens who have asked questions.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Wright.
This question's for City Attorney Niles. So had the recall been successful, those spearheading the recall, would have they been able to ask for reimbursement?
No, under the statute, it only applies to to an incumbent when a recall was not successful. And since I have the microphone on, I did confirm the statute of limitations is 2 years, not 3, as I stated previously. Wanted to
okay.
correct that.
Okay, thank you.
Member Russell, go ahead.
Thank you. And in your legal opinion, looking at the entire revised statute, it does apply to the city of Inglewood, even though we have our own election laws?
Yes, let me look at that portion of the statute. It specifically refers to municipalities, and it states that a municipality may repay the incumbent, and it doesn't simply limit it to statutory municipalities. And of course, we are a home rule municipality. And then it also refers to procedures when a municipality determines that it will pay, that it does so by ordinance, etc. So this would be a supplement to our ordinances. Now, if we had something that specifically said this doesn't apply in Inglewood, we don't do this, it would be a different conclusion. But we don't speak to this issue, so we do have that statutory authority.
Okay, so even though we have our own election laws and it wasn't included in there, it would still be legal to use this.
Yes, but I want to clarify, when you say we have our own elections laws, we don't have a specific elections code. We do have some provisions of code and charter that apply to elections, but we don't have a comprehensive set of laws that apply to elections. This is a project the city clerk and I are working on, is to consider either a set of comprehensive code regarding elections or to bring some proposals to our elections commission to consider administrative regulations regarding recall and referendum and initiative, just to provide clarity to people that have questions or that are going through the process. But currently, we don't have anything that would supplant or otherwise replace or eliminate the statutory authority.
Okay, thank you.
Member Prang.
I don't have any questions, just a few comments. I agree with
Actually-
Member Russell. Due
Actually, Member
diligence.
Prang, do you wait until we get a motion on the table for that?
Oh,
We don't have a motion
Just-
on the table, too.
okay, just to make
So, yeah,
comment.
just
Okay.
and just real quick, and I just realized, Member Russell and Member Wright, you don't have a laptop, but I just sent you the artwork for the sign. Did you want me to just share my computer on what it looks like? So that was the.
Can you share it on the screen?
I wish. Is there any way for me to present it? Do I have the ability to send it to the clerk? No, that's true. Actually, I'll just send it to you, Stephanie. Give him a second, though. Select this, choose what happens. Oh, that's just great. Got the antivirus jumped up. There we go. So just very simple. So you can see there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of the artwork. So okay. Go ahead, Member Wright.
Now, was it in blue or in black that you had it printed?
More like a purplish kind of match the existing. Kind of like a bluish purple kind of color to match the existing sign.
So it says print on both front and back. So was it put on the top of the regular
so-
yard signs?
Yeah, so you were able to see it on whichever direction you're coming from. So no, and but yeah, it was front and back. And no, and then we just cut them to fit the existing sign.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? If not, can I get a motion to approve 11A1?
I'll move to approve 11A1.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Prang. Any comments?
I would like to make a motion that, I know that you intend to recuse yourself.
Oh.
I move that Councilmember Noonenkamp and the Mayor Pro Tem would recuse themselves from this vote also because they were involved in a recall election.
Thank you, Member Russell. Can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, Member Wright. Any comments, Member Noonenkamp?
I would just like the city attorney to weigh in on her thoughts on this request.
Go ahead, City Attorney Niles.
Yes, we actually have a code of ethics that applies to when council members must be recused from considering a matter. I'm trying to pull it up and read it while I talk, so instead I'll just talk. So a conflict of interest that requires recusal only applies when the council member has a financial or fiduciary or economic interest in the item. So if it would benefit them personally or a close family member in some way, then they are required to recuse themselves. The second issue would be an appearance of impropriety. If it appears that someone, their impartiality could be potentially questioned, then they can voluntarily recuse themselves, but our code doesn't require it. So it would appear to me that based on the current code that council adopted in 2021, that they don't have a conflict of interest unless they will receive a specific financial benefit from that vote, which would be Mayor Sierra, and he and I already discussed that he would recuse himself on the matter. Otherwise, it would be a voluntary recusal, which would be a decision for the individual council members to make. And by our code, that's not something that council can make them do for an appearance of impropriety. The only time they are required to recuse themselves would be if they have that personal financial interest in the vote, in the matter before council.
And I mean, we still have a motion and a second on the table, which we can vote on. But I also do have a question that if one of the remaining council members that did not recuse themselves, and then it comes up in a month to maybe a year and a half, they decide they want to be reimbursed also, then it was obviously a conflict of interest at the time.
Not necessarily, because again, the conflict of interest that requires recusal, according to the law that this city council adopted, is only if they personally or a close family member would see a financial benefit from that specific vote. Now, I think if it does come up again, you could then say this is an appearance of impropriety, or, there could be other arguments that you could make that it doesn't look right. But again, that's a personal decision for each council member to make.
Thank you. That is a personal decision.
Yep.
I call for a vote.
Point of order. Since this would be illegal for council to require members to recuse when there's no financial interest, I would ask that Member Russell and Ms. Wright Member Wright withdraw their motion, since that would not be a legally binding requirement.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Member Ward.
I believe Member Russell called the question, Mayor. So
Yeah.
I do not have the opportunity to speak until that vote occurs.
Sounds great. And we'll vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson,
Nay.
Member Noonenkamp,
Nay.
Member Prang,
Nay.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Ward,
Nay.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Nay.
Let the record show 2 ayes and 5 nays.
Thank you.
Actually, I don't think we can count the mayor's vote because he's recusing himself from the vote altogether.
That was not the overall motion. That was the calling the question. And we just voted that the question is not called.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything else to add, or we'll go to member Ward?
I have a fair amount to discuss about what's just occurred, but I don't know if that's appropriate in the present moment. We've just taken a vote on the obligation of recusing two
Right.
members of the body.
Correct.
Point of order. We took a vote on whether or not we're calling the question.
The question was called. That's why we voted.
Right.
You have to have a majority of council to approve calling the question. That's what we were voting on. It's not a privileged motion. No one member can call the question. You have to have a majority of council.
I see our city attorney.
City
looking
attorney
at
now,
this
is there
right now.
anything to?
I would like to.
I have never known Mayor Pro Tem to be wrong on any matter of procedure under Bob's Rules of Procedure, but I am reviewing that. So a supermajority or 2/3 of the quorum present is required for a motion to call the question.
All right. Well, I stand corrected. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Anything else, member Ward?
Yes. Now I do have some things to add. I believe that if we obligated member Camp or member Anderson to recuse, we would actually be acting in direct violation of Charter 37. Charter 37 is the charter provision, for those of you who are not familiar with it, that requires, and I quote, every council member, when present, must vote upon ordinances, resolutions, and motions, except the council member shall be excused from voting on matters involving the consideration of their own official conduct or when their personal or financial interest is involved. In the issue that we have before us right now, the only person who has individual financial interest in the current issue that we are intending to vote on is Mayor Sierra. Neither Councilmember Anderson nor Councilmember Neunenkamp have any direct financial interest involved in the question that we are being asked to vote on right now, which is why it would be inappropriate and in direct violation of Charter 37 for either one of them to even attempt to recuse, much less have this body obligate them to do so.
Thank you, member Ward. And we have a motion on the table. Any further comments? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I would like advice on the city attorney when the motion is an illegal action. This would be against a violation of charter and a violation of our ethics code. So since there's a motion and a second, do we just go along with the illegal motion, or can we vote to remove this and not vote on it?
Well, Bob's Rules of Order is a very short document and it doesn't speak to this. However, because it doesn't speak to it, there is a motion and a second on the table. I believe we should go ahead and vote on it, but if the body does pass it, it would violate charter and municipal code.
I would again return to my request earlier to ask Member Russell and Member Wright to withdraw the motion second, since there's no legal basis for this motion. It would be illegal if we voted yes on this.
Member Russell or member Wright, do you want to weigh in? Go ahead, member Wright.
Here's my concern. Mayor Pro Tem said that he is not going to ask for any reimbursement. Member Neunenkamp was asked and said she will be giving comment later, and we've not heard that comment. My concern is we're asking, and we don't know if there's a gentleladies agreement. You vote for me, I'll vote for you, and I think there's enhanced the concern. And I think that's why there's a motion for recusal. I could understand Mayor Pro Tem has already said, I am not going to be asking for any reimbursement because I was able to get donations. So I believe that's where the concern is at this point. I am willing to withdraw Mayor Pro Tem from asking for recusal, but when we ask Member Noonenkamp, what are you going to be doing moving forward? Can everyone understand where I'm coming from in my thought process? And City Attorney, I guess maybe you could hone in on that thought process.
I do think you make an interesting difference that I don't think was reflected in the motion, but you referred to asking a council member to recuse. I think you could make a motion and take a vote on whether you would like to ask that council member to voluntarily recuse. Nothing would prohibit that. But as I interpreted the motion, it was requiring them to recuse, and there's no legal authority to do that. Now, there is still the charter question that says they are required to vote. However, if a council member feels that recusal is appropriate and that they can't be fair and impartial, I think that would support recusal, and it certainly would under our ethics code. But again, that is a personal decision for each council member to make. If they can be fair and impartial in the decision-making process, unless they have a conflict of interest, they're not required to recuse from the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything to add?
I would just say the accusation that's embedded in the question there is that there is you're assuming that there's a dishonest agreement going on behind the scenes. That shows a significant amount of ill will towards your fellow council members, and that's what's driving this decision to recuse. I think that's not coming from a good place.
Sorry, Member Wright, actually, we're going to Member Noonenkamp and then Member Russell.
Okay.
No, I'll defer.
Member Russell.
I don't think it is ill will. I am willing to withdraw the motion, especially for the Mayor Pro Tem. I do have an issue with Council Member Noonenkamp not being willing to answer that question if she intended to, because I do believe that it is problematic. I mean, I'm at the point right now, you all can do what you want to do. I think it's very ill will on membership's, other members' part not to answer a question either. It should be open and transparent. So
Member Noonenkamp said that she was going to answer that before we voted.
I did not hear her say before we voted. I heard her say during.
All right.
Point of order.
Hold on, point of order. Yeah, let's. Member Russell, anything else to add? Or
I withdraw my motion.
thank you, Member Russell. And Member Wright, did you also?
I apologize if I gave that indication. That is not what I meant. It just word vomit, whatever you want to call it. So I will apologize to Member Noonenkamp, but she was asked twice, and by not wanting to answer something, this is what starts people wondering things. So I apologize to you. I will withdraw my motion, but we need to move forward.
Thank you, Member Wright. And yeah, there's just sounds to be a misunderstanding in terms of what Member Noonenkamp stated. Member Pring.
Yes, I'd just like to take us back out of our emotions a little bit. I think that this is bad decorum in front of our city, and I do appreciate that we've had some of the conversation and the push that we've had tonight, and I do think that it, has addressed some of the public comment that's come up. The way that I view this is that this is a right that one of our citizens has, similarly to the rights of our citizens who chose to proceed with the recall and, didn't get the result that was desired. And so in my mind, I can't distinguish between allowing, whether it be our mayor pro tem, or Councilmember Noonenkamp, a request that they have a right to make. And it's not a significant amount of money. It's not a huge risk to the city. So I want to say that I appreciate that the discourse has happened. I do appreciate members Wright and Russell, hearing the concerns that have come from to the table and pulling that second motion back. And let's just approach this as an individual request by each council member, if and when they come forward, instead of speculating on what may or may not happen.
Thank you, Member Prang and Member Noonan-Camp.
Just to be clear, are we back to the original question now?
We are back to the original motion on the table, and we are now, just giving comment before vote.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I am so sorry to interrupt, but under our ethics code, once you have recused yourself, our code requires that you physically leave the podium or meeting area at which the matter is being considered. They were asking you questions, and so I thought it was appropriate for you to stay to answer those questions. But once we have moved on to the consideration of the matter, our code does require you to step away and hand the reins off to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Have fun. All right, further comments on the motion on the table?
Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm very happy to share very transparently how I feel both about my own right under the law to recoup costs as well as how I'm going to vote tonight. What I don't respond to is being demanded to and ordered to answer a question on a timetable that another council member would like it. It doesn't make me feel respected. I don't think it's a good example for us to set for our citizens. I'm happy to engage in good faith. I was deeply hurt and offended by any even hint of accusation that I would be trading votes. That is such a violation of my integrity and my character and the ethics that I bring to this work that even suggesting that might be something I would engage in is deeply offensive. I appreciate your apology, but that is deeply hurtful to me. And it's so hurtful because this is a very hard vote for me. I have probably struggled more over this vote than almost any other vote that we've had in the last 2 years, because I respect our mayor and I disagree with this decision. I am not going to try to recoup any of the costs that I expended during the election. I thought that the recall election, and the majority of our citizens agreed, was not good for our city. It was destructive, it was divisive, and the majority of our citizens told us that they did not want it. We had to spend an incredible amount of money to facilitate that election under the law. We did not have a choice. I would rather us not see one more penny spent on this issue. I want us to move forward unified. I want us to build bridges. I want us to work together. That is what my desire is. But this job requires us to balance what we want with the precedent that we will set for the city moving forward, because in 20 years, someone will be looking back and they will say, has anyone ever tried to recoup their costs for a recall election? And they will say, well, one time in 2024, the mayor asked for it. And they are going to look at these votes and they are going to see what example we set for them. And with the amount of money we are considering, the documentation that the mayor has provided, and acknowledging that he has the right under the law to ask for it, I have a hard time denying that request without more justification. So while I personally will not be doing this, while I hate the fact that the majority of our taxpayers are paying for elections that they did not want or ask for or support, I will be supporting this tonight. I did not start there. I was going to vote no. But the precedent and the long-term impact of these decisions on the future of our city is very important to me. And so I'll be voting that way, although I will not be pursuing that myself. I consider the finances I expended and the blood, sweat, and tears to be a donation to the future of the city of Inglewood, and I was happy to do it. That's all I'm going to say.
Further comments? Member Ward?
Wow. First of all, Member Noonan-Camp, thank you for that. It's always difficult when this body has interpersonal disagreement, particularly when someone's character is called into question or allegations about what could be happening behind the scenes arise. I I share a fair amount of Member Noonenkamp's concern on this particular vote, but I think the mayor has the right to make this request. This body has the right to evaluate the request, and the responsibility, for that matter, to evaluate this request. When I look at the amount of the request in the face of the overall cost of conducting the election, I don't see honoring this request as a big issue. So I will be voting in the affirmative on this request tonight, because I just believe that this is part of the process under state law, and so I will be honoring the request that the mayor is making.
Member Russell.
Thank you. I believe that the recall did more. I don't think it was the recall that did all that to divide the city. The council created the recall. And had the council been listening, maybe not giving in on everything, but you didn't. And listen, you know, this isn't an easy job. There are times I've spent a lot of money on this city and never asked for a dime in return, although I could have. And I'm just tired of this whining back and forth. If we're going to be big boys and big girls, we need to be able to handle the truth and other people's opinions and stop pointing fingers at each other. I will be voting no on this because the citizens had a right to do what they did. And so that is all I have to say. Thank you.
I'll share kind of my opinion on this. As I said, I'm not seeking any reimbursement. Since I put together a committee and raised money for this, I did donate some of my own money to that committee, but I don't believe that I could reimburse or seek reimbursement for that since it went through a committee that solicited funds, which is something that is disallowed under this statute. But the wording of the statute here says that this is only if a recall is unsuccessful and the incumbent is seeking reimbursement for expenses expended as expenses of such an election. So I see these expenses in this case where the mayor won the recall, succeeded in the recall as a cost of doing business of the city. We make a recall process. Part of that process is that the council members who are recalled, if it's unsuccessful, then it's a cost of the recall election. And I think just like we spent the $140,000 to run the election, this is a small add-on expense to that. I don't think we should have spent any of it for an election like this. And so I wish we weren't here, but here we are. And I believe that in this case, it's appropriate to reimburse the mayor for his expenses. And with that, let's vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Nay.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Nay.
Let the record show 4 ayes and 2 nays.
All right, I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
All right, everyone, moving on now to mayor's choice. So yeah, very first thing I want to bring up is that I've become aware that there's a couple of citizens that are requesting to interview for the boards and commissions. They're unable to attend in person and are asked, I believe both of them are out of town, and so they are asking if we can provide a hybrid option to the interviewees. I'm open to this request since it's a board and commission. Obviously, it's just a 10-minute meeting. They're not able to move based off our scheduling. So They are open to serving in person when they are on the board, if they get assigned to a board or a commission, but they are just asking for this request. So just asking to see if members of council are open to making a hybrid option for these two individuals. Go ahead, Member Prang.
I'm absolutely open to it. I think if, our scheduling conflicts with prior scheduled commitments that these desired applicants have, that we should accommodate their requests to, better service the city and have a good pool of applicants to speak to.
Thank you, Member Prang. Anyone else? Anyone against the motion? Go ahead, Member. You're for it as well. Anybody against it? Go ahead, Member Wright.
It's because they're going to be out of town, you said?
They are not able to attend in person, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So no objection. Member Russell, anything to add?
So are they out of town on business, or I guess it really doesn't matter?
I didn't ask specifically, but they're
Okay.
just not in, yeah.
All right, that's fine. I mean, but sometimes if we have Zoom technology problems, that may impact the interview.
Yeah. We
So-
discussed that as well, but yeah, since we're gonna be holding them in Pikes Peak, we're not expecting any Zoom issues with that room.
Okay,
We seem to have more issues in the community room in here, so,
okay.
than we do there, so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then moving on to the executive session to discuss acquisition of real property located near Civic Center under CRS section 246402-4A. I move to go into executive session tonight to discuss acquisition of real property located near Civic Center under CRS section 246402-4A. Present at the executive session are the following persons: Mayor Nathaniel Sierra, Mayor Pro Tem Joe Anderson, council members Chelsea Noonencamp, Tina Prang, Rita Russell, Stephen Ward, Kim Wright, City Manager Sean Lewis, City Attorney Tamara Niles, Deputy City Manager Tim Dodd, Chief Redevelopment Officer Dan Parumba, Brad Power, the Director of Community Development, Finance Manager Kevin Ingalls, and Mark Tompkins and Elizabeth Lee, both from Stray Advisory Services. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Anderson. Can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonencamp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you, everyone. We will now exit this meeting and reconvene next door in the community room. Yeah, I figured. All right, everyone, the time is now 11:18 and the executive session has been concluded. Present at the executive session were the following persons: Mayor Nathaniel Sierra, Mayor Pro Tem Joe Anderson, council members Chelsea Noonencamp, Tina Prang, Rita Russell, Stephen Ward, Kim Wright, City Manager Sean Lewis, City Attorney Tamara Niles, Deputy City Manager Tim Dodd, Chief Redevelopment Manager Dan Parumba, Director of Community Development Brad Power, Finance Manager Kevin Ingalls, and Mark Tompkins and Elizabeth Lee of Stray Advisory Services. I move to close this executive session. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Member Ward, can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp,
Aye.
Member Prang,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Ward,
Aye.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matter is not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. All right, everyone, that concludes Mayor's Choice. Anyone have anything for Council Member's Choice? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just wanted to announce a town hall that I'm going to do probably sometime late February, early March. Date has yet to be determined, but just wanted to do it on our new land use codes and what citizens can expect, what benefits they could get out of the new codes. And so, yeah, I'll be holding that probably at Sunroom Brewing, but the date has not been finalized yet, so I'll announce that when we get the date figured out.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Member Wright.
Thank you. I spent a lot of this last weekend on the phone with a lot of people in regards to the frigid temperatures. We hit a 94-year record on below freezing temperatures, and I learned several things, of which council is responsible for coming up with emergency response on what to do. Yesterday was the holiday, and a lot of our vulnerable, homeless, at-risk people use the library to go to when it's cold out and stuff like that. The library was closed. I spoke to several people, and the police department did an outstanding job for the 96 hours we were, below freezing, well, below zero, negatives. So I would like to see what we need to do to have a special council meeting to put together an emergency process in place for Inglewood so that we don't have to rely on nonprofits scrambling to do things together, getting a hold of City Manager Lewis last minute saying, what are we doing? To have clear communication on what to do. Movement 5280 was trying to open up as an emergency overnight shelter, and they weren't able to because they weren't able to get approved and have night watch from the fire marshal and stuff. I want to know what Tri-Cities has in place for these services and what they're doing and stuff. So I think that this council needs to put something in play as soon as possible and put processes in place. So I don't know what we need to do, but sooner than later, we have blizzards and another cold snap could take place at any time. So, and I felt helpless. So whatever we could do, please.
Thank you, Member Wright. I guess first question, I know that we have some policies in terms of, I'm open to having that conversation, but I'm also wondering, we do have some sort of, we have policies in place in terms of how churches and other facilities have to get approved or have to, what the requirements are in order for them to have emergency shelters. And we talked about that about 3 years ago or so. So there are policies in place, but I'm open to having that conversation again, just because there is a new council. But I'd like to get all that information that went into some of the concerns that you voiced as being part of that study session, so we all have the same information.
Right.
Plus, the other question that I have for you is, are you open to having not only the library, are you talking about other facilities that you want to city to utilize during, events like we experienced over the last 3 days.
Right, and let me explain. So Movement 5280's typically not open on Saturday. Don't think they're open on Monday. Sunday they're open because they have church services, but they opened on Saturday. They opened today. They extended their hours Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They went above and beyond. So how do we get the communication out to those people that are vulnerable? So it was difficult.
Right.
The information that City Manager Lewis sent out to us, gave the overnight shelters and stuff. Part of the things that we ran into is you have to pre-register to these shelters. Well, these folks don't have phones. They don't have internet connection. So the people that were out on the streets trying to get these folks off the streets and into shelter were signing, registering them. The police were registering them. The police went as far as driving some of these folks clear out to Aurora so that they would have overnight shelter. We can't expect the library to open up on a holiday, but the rec centers were open. So could have they made accommodations? And the rec centers did say they could sit in here for 2 hours, but then they have to leave. Well, in these kind of conditions, can we extend that amount of time where they might be able to sit in one of the gyms that are typically not used? And I think those are the type of things we need to look at in these extenuating circumstances. So just an SOP.
Yeah, go ahead, Member Noonan-Kemp.
I just want to respond to this. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think we have to take care of this health and safety of our citizens, but we also already do have a lot of tools at our disposal. I think some of this we can already do. I think we have used the rec center as a warming. I think the big cold snap last year, we used the rec center as a warming station. Like, we're already doing some of that. My understanding is that we didn't do that this weekend because the EPD said that, for who they were finding on the street, there wasn't enough demand to open up that room because they were offering shelter and some people were refusing it. So I almost wonder if this should start as a council request about what's everything we already have authorization to do when this happens, so that we can understand, are there actually any gaps, or is it just maybe communication, that kind of things. I think we're already doing a lot, and I would rather do that than have a conversation if we've identified gaps after the council request.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Kemp. Mayor Pro Tem.
I would, I'd like to see that council request, but I'd also be open to having a conversation that it's, that it's legal at once it gets below some temperature for a certain period of time, it's legal for any church to operate as a overnight warming site. I mean, I know twice we've had to pass an ordinance to even make it legal to do severe weather sheltering. And we did that with a lot of pushback from citizens. And I know Councilmember Russell was opposed to both of those ordinances at the time as well. But there does seem to be a shift in how some of the citizens are thinking about homelessness, which I think is really great. And so I think it may be an opportunity to have that conversation and expand what's legal under certain cold temperatures and that kind of thing. But I certainly would be I would also be interested in knowing what the numbers were that the police were seeing that were out, because I know severe weather shelter put up a lot of people. Hat Force, we had a lot of activity going on over the weekend. I'm really thankful for what the nonprofits are doing, and I'm not sure the government has the resources or the know-how to really do anything other than that those last few inches, which I'm wondering if we were actually successful if we were to evaluate this situation.
Right. And I'll pass it back to you, Member Wright, but also just any gaps that may have come up from police department or any of our partners that they saw as part of the last 3 days, and see what type of changes. Add that to the council request, but that could be also another item that we need to address in the future. Go ahead, Member Wright.
I know that Movement 5280 alone gave out, it was either 40 or 45 vouchers from Hat Force and it was 4-day vouchers to hotels alone. I also know that private entities put people in hotels where they could not get them into overnight shelters. So they were putting them in hotels themselves. The police department did a phenomenal job, and we're picking up people left and right. I do know there is one missing individual. One of my concerns is that I'm hearing that people were brought up from Littleton, homeless. One of them is a missing 73-year-old man, and he was disoriented. So I think we need to touch base with Littleton and find out where the disconnect was there. Was he brought up to be brought up to a shelter, or what happened there? So I think we need to make contact and see, because that man is missing. He was with a woman, and they got separated, and they're searching for him now. So, but because of the efforts of many, we did not lose anybody from what I've been told. So, and kudos to everybody in their efforts.
Thank you, Member Wright. Anyone else?
Can I
Member
respond to
Russell.
that just really quick? I'm so sorry. I just want to say, like, that's great news. That means it's working. Like, it's good news when it's not all falling on the government to do that, but we have our network of partners who are working together, which is the whole point of Tri-Cities. So I just want to actually name that means that collaboration and that partnership is working, and we should acknowledge that when we can. The goal isn't for the city to do everything. And so the fact that our partners were able to really bear the weight of a severe emergency with very little left for police to handle is like a huge win for this weekend. And, then we can do more.
Member Russell.
Thank you. On 5280 not being able to get an emergency, I think was day shelter, right? Was it an overnight also?
Yes, I was briefed on this earlier today. We were actually really happy to hear that they were providing day sheltering on days that they would normally be closed, and we actually transported and provided that resource once we found out about it from Member Wright told me, and I passed that on to police. But we were not able to allow them to provide overnight sheltering. As you know, we created a process for that 3 years ago. It was quite contentious, but got that into code that if you do certain things that you can provide overnight sheltering. And they did not meet that. In addition, they actually have a zoning problem there where they cannot provide sheltering. But we did provide for some emergency sheltering, and we can get that outlined in the report.
Okay, I appreciate that. I mean, and it wasn't that I was against putting homeless in overnight shelters. I'm against putting them in places that are not safe. And that's why, and I do think there are other resources out there. I do think that, so even if they came up to code for everything that we required, they wouldn't be able to do it because the area that they're located in.
No, I'm sorry. I think I complicated matters by mentioning zoning. They cannot provide permanent sheltering there without a zone change. They can, under the guidelines that council passed a few years ago, provide that in their current zoning, but only on a temporary basis.
Okay, so like if the weather got really bad. The other thing that I do think that we need to talk about is, in conjunction with all of this, is what is Tri-Cities doing? And it is a little bit concerning that I heard reports that Littleton was bringing people over to Inglewood to drop them off. If we are bearing the burden of all of it, then that's problematic. Sheridan and Littleton need to start dealing with that too. So I think that's another thing we just need to address. But yes, I do want people to be taken care of. I'm very thankful that the police did a great job, and that the volunteers, I know I have heard from a few people too, that there were a lot of people going out and seeing if they could find homeless people. So I'm very thankful that they're safe. So thank you. Thank you, Member Wright, for bringing this up.
Thank you, Member Prank.
I just want to clarify, are we putting this into a council request first and
We
foremost
are,
and
yes.
then bringing, okay.
Yes.
It would be very helpful for me to see a list of the current resources, what their limitations are not, and some data around who's been served, and also some of what we heard tonight of who's refusing services and what we can and can't do about that. I think it's a conundrum. If you have someone who is very disoriented and confused and we've got services available, but we can't force people into services. So I'd like to see some data on some of that as well before we have a console.
Go ahead, Member Russell.
And also, this is very concerning to me that last week and tonight, people were coming and saying that the police are not returning people's property. And I think we need to look into that and find out about that also.
City Manager, that's part of a council request today, correct? Go ahead,
I
City
would-
Manager, you could just jump to your report.
Okay, I would recommend that be a separate council request. The city attorney and I have had a couple of quick conversations about that. I've also talked to the Police Chief Watson about this issue. It definitely warrants looking into because there are definitely rights that people have to their property. So we want to make sure we're doing that by the law and right by our residents, whether they're housed or not.
Anything else for City Manager's report?
Well, interestingly, you kind of took my thunder. I was going to report on two things: snow, which I'll just pass on to next week, some of our snow response, but also just thanking the police department for the work that they did, giving out, helping give out the vouchers, getting people registered for overnight stay, severe weather shelter and network, and the HAP Force were really our two primary go-tos. Really appreciate Member Wright connecting us to 5280. We worked closely with them. I have asked for a meeting in the next week with 5280 to really make sure that we have those good communication lines, understand what services they are providing, hopefully get them set up for one of those facilities. Right now, Inglewood only has one of those temporary overnight shelters for services, and it's Emmanuel, the one with the eye on a coma. Emmanuel with an eye on a coma. That is the only currently church that's authorized to house in Inglewood. The other ones are actually in Littleton, so quite a bit of sheltering was done in Littleton throughout this. So we'll be meeting with them, but just really want to thank the police department for their good work and also council for their interest. The deputy city manager and I were just talking about putting together this council request, and maybe a future study session will really help to kind of firm up some of our policies of if then, when we do things, because we did open up in December of 2022. I think it was 22, where we opened up temporary shelter in Mali. And, we probably need to have a better kind of guidance on when we do things to use Member Anderson's words for those last inches of when we really desperately need last minute resources to make sure people are kept safe. So we're happy to put that together, and thank you for the question.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And with that, the meeting is now adjourned. I'll see you all next week. Have a good evening.